All right, so I thought I would put together this video to explain a little bit of who I am and to give some of my experiences in life to let you know what has shaped me to be who I am today and where I'm at today. All right, so with that being said, I am Amanda Moon, and I am 40 years old. I was born May 14th, 1978, to the parents of Richard and Carol Lust. Yes, that is correct. My maiden name was Lust, L-U-S-T. I have two older brothers, and I am the baby of the family, the only girl and the baby. And I have two amazing, wonderful children. I have my son, Levi, who is 23, going to be 24 this year. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And then I have my daughter, who is 19 and will be turning 20 this year. Oh my gosh. Woo, crazy. I will then open up with that. So, I lost my father to cancer from Agent Orange. He's a Vietnam veteran, and I lost him when I was 15 and a half years old. He battled cancer for 2 years and finally had passed in 1993 from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, again from Agent Orange, from fighting in Vietnam. And a few months actually after turning 16, I found out that I was pregnant with my first. And then I gave birth to my beautiful baby boy, Levi, when I was 16, and a few weeks later I turned 17. And through that, I had gained a tremendous amount of weight. I was extremely depressed from losing my father and just things that had happened in my life. And I believe that I suffered from postpartum. That was not talked about back then. That was 1995. I had no idea what that was, and I was such a young mother. Again, I had gained a tremendous amount of weight, and that was very important to me. Being thin was always an issue for me. My weight was always an issue for me. I can go back to thinking about that from the time I was probably age 5, when I first noticed stretch marks on my body. So with that being said, I was in school at the time when I had my son, and I was in a continuation high school, and I ended up graduating a little before I turned 18. And so I graduated a few months earlier than the time I was supposed to, but I ended up walking with my class. Things were pretty good. I mean, besides being depressed and so upset with my weight, I was doing really great in school. I felt I was an excellent mom. I had joined what was called Moms and Kids, a nonprofit organization in the great town of Hollister, which Hollister, California, didn't even say that, is where I grew up. I was born in Salinas, California, but pretty much I was raised in Hollister. And so I was in this moms and kids group. Yes, I was the youngest one, but I made friends with all the moms in that group. Things were they were pretty good. I also became a playgroup leader. I ended up going on to be president of Moms and Kids, and just being really involved with Moms and Kids. I loved it. It's something that, even though I was battling a lot of emotional trauma in my life, I felt that that was something that sustained me, and it was a positive environment, and it was great for my son. And then I ended up graduating and ended up with getting tons of scholarships as well. And I didn't use all those scholarships. I think I took one of the scholarships that I used or that I was given, and I decided to enroll in what was called Healed Business College. I always had this dream of wanting to be in business, either owning my own business or something. At that point, it was actually, I always thought I'd be working from home, being a stay-at-home mom and working from home. That was kind of a dream of mine. So I graduated in June of 1996, and I then went on to pursue these business courses at Healed Business College, and that was in July of 1996. And then going back again to the weight and all of that, I happened to meet a girl right away when I started at Healed Business College. And I noticed within the first few weeks of meeting her, she had lost a ton of weight, just really fast. And she was coming to school looking super pretty, just dressed really nice. And I noticed new clothes, and just her physique was changing. And I ran into her in the bathroom one day and decided to ask her about it. I asked her how she was losing all this weight, and just told her how great she looked and how I wish that could happen, because I was so upset with how big I was. Like, it was just eating away at me. I couldn't stand it. I was depressed about it. And she informed me that she was using cookies. Cookies was her word. So she asked if I would be interested in knowing what cookies were. I'm like, heck yeah. I want to know what these like super powerful cookies are. Do you know where I'm going with this? So I decided to get in her car with her on our lunch break and go down the street and find out what these cookies were. And she confided in me, asked me not to tell anybody what she was doing. And long story short, she took out paraphernalia and all this kind of stuff and snorted what was crack, crystal meth at that time. And I was too scared to try right at that moment. So we talked about it, and I asked her all these questions like, well, can you still drive your car? Are you still able to function? Like, do you end up having to use a needle to shoot up? I've heard of people doing that. Like what is this all about? Like, oh my gosh, like, just tell me everything. Because when she did that, she looked fine. She was able to function and still talk with me, and she didn't get sick. I always had this fear of getting sick and throwing up. And I'm like, okay, she didn't do that, so she's fine. Okay, so things were going good, and then we decided to cut our classes and stay a little longer through our lunch period and talk about this some more. And before you know it, I was snorting my first line. And that first line got me hooked for 10 years of my life, all just so I could lose weight. There you go. So the whole reason I started using crystal meth was so I could lose weight. Kind of makes me sad, because to know that I had that big of insecurities in my life, and I was that upset, and that and feeling that horrible about myself, that I would jeopardize not only my life, but my kids' lives, my family's lives, everything in my life, just so I could lose weight. And even though I'm crying and I'm upset about this and sharing this right here now with you, hopefully this story, you'll continue to listen, but it has led to a great positive thing, and I've healed from this. And I think what I'm thinking right now is just, I'm sure there's so many people out there that have those same feelings and are going to risk the same things just because they're so insecure and so unhappy with themselves. And if I can put this video together and hopefully deliver the right message. And if I can help that one person understand that it's not worth it, that is my goal today. And to understand where I've come in my walk with God is another goal today. So I snorted my first line and I drove home and I felt amazing. I really felt amazing. I was like, whoo, weight is lifted off my shoulders. I feel good. I was blasting my music. I couldn't wait to get home, to get my son and go take him to the park and just have all this energy and just feel good. And, life was good. I wasn't going to fight with my boyfriend at the time. I wasn't going to fight with my mom. And my boyfriend is, my son's father. And I wasn't going to tell anyone about this. So that's exactly what I did. Drove home, picked up my son, took him to the park. I felt good. I didn't want to eat. I was not hungry at all. Life was amazing. And it continued from there. So I continued to use, and I really didn't even have to pay for this stuff. My new friend, my new best friend, her brother made this and sold it. Yes, made it and sold it. So again, I fell into this this trap or whatever of becoming a user and not even having to pay for it. So it was just given to me. I lived this life of lies. I did not tell my family. I hid the fact that I wasn't sleeping at night. Sometimes I just lay there awake, or I'd go hide in the bathroom or something. And I just, again, would hide it. I hid it. I can't even remember all the ways I was able to hide it, but I did. And I did start losing weight really fast, and questions that were asked, how are you doing this and that? Also at the time, my mom had taken me to a doctor to get me on Redux, which that's the time during Fen-Phen and Redux diet pills. Maybe some of you have heard of that. They were weight loss pills, prescription. You could only get them from a doctor. So I was having her take me and get those, and I would give those pills as money for the drugs. So my mom was actually supporting my drug habit, I guess, and that's how I told people, oh, I'm doing Slim Fast, I'm taking diet pills, oh yeah, I eat a little bit here and there. Oh, I'm walking. I wasn't even exercising. I'd say, oh, at lunch break, I'd go for a walk. People didn't know I was living this life, going to school in Salinas, which I wasn't even going to my classes. I was skipping classes. That was a pattern of mine. I'd started doing that when I was in 7th grade. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. Maybe it will be part of this story. But that was in 7th grade. That I started actually skipping classes and cutting school. So anyway, I continued down this life of using. I said I had started school in July of 1996. By the beginning of 1997, I had dropped out of school. Did not like it, did not want to be there. I was getting horrible grades because I was never there. The only classes I actually really liked were the business classes. Yeah, go figure. I can still actually remember today what we talked about in those business classes. And it was pretty awesome, and it still seems awesome to me today. And then in, I can't even remember, I think I just said in 1997, I ended up applying for a job at our local bank. It was called San Benito Bank at the time. And I got hired, and again, I was using at this time. I got hired at this bank. I got hired as their courier, which that meant I was in charge of driving their van around and going to the major local businesses in town in San Benito County. So that also involved going, again, I lived in Hollister, so that involved going to San Juan Bautista. If any of you know Mission San Juan, so that it involved going to that town as well. And I was in charge of picking up the big deposits and putting them in the van. And again, remember, I was using at this time. Yeah, I'd pull over in the van, I'd cut up my line, and I'd snort. And I even had people in my life at the time that I would go see them at work with the van. I'd pick them up, have them hop in the back of the van, go for a ride. All of this, hiding all of this. Not telling anyone I was doing this. I didn't look like I was a user because people put judgment on what a user would look like, which is pretty sad. And I felt awesome at this job. I got to dress up. I got to wear these pretty clothes, and I felt really good. I had lost all this weight. This was the smallest I've ever been in my entire life. Felt amazing, and was working at this bank, making good money, taking care of my son, still taking him to moms and kids. I had ups and downs in my life with my mom. That's a whole another thing that maybe I'll get into later in this video, but and I was on again, off again in the relationship with my boyfriend at the time, which was my son's father. And I was still dealing with all of these emotions of losing my dad, and just the days that I wasn't like snorting or I was off of work and trying to come off and try and catch up on sleep, I just would just have just huge crying sessions. My mom was like, "What is going on with you?" She actually, I had her believing that at one point I didn't know if I was upset because I wanted to marry my son's father, or if we wanted to break up, or what the case was. And I actually remember this whole scene of me laying in bed crying, not feeling good, and I was going through a lot of tummy issues at that time too, in and out of emergency room and stuff because I was in such horrible pain with my stomach. And I remember after one of those episodes, just being in my bed and my mom sitting there like crying and talking with me and stuff, and her saying, you need to marry him, you need to get married and stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe that is what I need to do. I don't know, just trying to feed her lies. I was still just lying and lying just to get through life. And a few months after that, I was driving the van at work, and I had a really bad, horrible stomach issue, pain happen. I had to actually pull over the van and call the bank and ask for someone to come pick me up because I couldn't even drive. And they took me to emergency, the emergency room at our local hospital at that time. And my mom met me down there, and my grandma and stuff. And come to find out, they did an ultrasound, and I had gallstones. So I needed to have an emergency surgery and have my gallbladder removed. And this was right before my son's second birthday. So we canceled his birthday party and everything. So now we're in about April with 1997 here. And through all this, no one found out I was using. No one ever tested me. I didn't tell anybody. Of course, I thought these stomach pains were all being caused from using drugs. So some days I'd stop using some, like I was afraid, and then I'd start back up again because I started eating and gaining some weight. So I wanted to start using again, and it just, I was so addicted to using. But anyway, I had to be off during the surgery time. And I remember sleeping a lot and being out of it, but still trying to play with my son, and just, that is probably the one thing that kept me going. That is, I don't even want to say probably. I'm sorry. I know we can't take words back, but he was my light. He just, I just was so happy being with him, and being a mom. And yet I was so disgusted with everything else. And so I continued to use. But during the time that I had surgery, I did stop using for a while because I had to. And so during that time, again, we're talking the end of April, middle of April, somewhere around there. And my son had his birthday. And the next thing I know, my mom's planning this like date night for my boyfriend at the time and myself. And she's saying she'll babysit, my son and all this stuff. And the next thing I know, like he's taking me to the cemetery where my dad was, and she had planned for him to have this picnic dinner with me and all this stuff. And basically, another long story short, he proposed to me out at the cemetery, and I just was overfilled with all these emotions because here was with my dad and all this stuff. And I knew it wasn't coming from him. My mom had planned all this. My mom had picked out the ring. My mom had designed this ring for me. She basically did all this stuff and had him propose to me. So next thing you know, I'm engaged. And I wanted to start using even more. So our wedding was going to be in May of 1998. I'm going to fast forward through that year because that was a year of still working at the bank. Then I became a bank teller, using every single day while I was at that bank, driving back and forth from Salinas or King City, because that's where I was getting my drugs from at the time. Driving back and forth, lying about what I was doing, trying to be involved in moms and kids, and my mom planning this whole wedding, who my bridesmaids were, my dress, my bridesmaids' dresses, like everything. Like she planned it all. I didn't have a say. I was just in this, like, that's when I was in La La Land. I've always been told I lived in La La Land. I was in this La La Land of like, whatever. So then, come to find out, beginning of 1998, my mom's hitting me with, she was diagnosed with cancer herself and was told she only had a year to live. And so that was very hard. It was really hard. Because I'll go into my mom and I about our relationship, but I was then put on, the stress was put onto me of how I had caused this cancer. I had caused a lot of stress in her life, and I had actually caused this to happen. And she actually was diagnosed with stage 4 malignant melanoma. So it was from a mole that was on her right arm by her elbow. And they had to go in, I think it was like, I don't remember how many inches deep, and they had to do skin grafting. And again, it was stage 4 malignant melanoma from a mole, but yet it was put on me that I had caused all this and stuff. And I really believed it. I really actually truly believed it. So all this stuff again going on in my life, and this emotional trauma, and I am getting married, and my mom's inviting all these people, and we're going to wedding venues, and my grandma's involved and paying for all this stuff. And here comes 1998, and I am walking down an aisle to get married in May of 1998. I remember walking down that aisle and being so sick to my stomach because I did not want to get married. I did not want to get married. I knew that morning I didn't want to get married. I just kept going along with the flow. I remember at one point trying to tell my mom I wasn't sure if getting married was the right thing for me. And oh gosh, just the few little words that I had used at that time was unbelievable, because she came unglued. Like, do you know how much money I'm putting into this? Blah, 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 blah. You are going to get married. This is what you want. This is, what you've been saying you wanted, this and that. So I never once brought it up again. And I'm walking down that aisle, and I was crying, and I remember being told, "Oh, I know that's because you really want your dad here to be walking you down and this and that." And it actually was not because of that. Yeah, it was being held at Presbyterian Church. I remember my boyfriend at the time, my son's father, I remember us going and meeting with the pastor and him wanting us to make up these lists of why we love each other, why we're going to get married, why we're in love. And I actually said to him, I don't know if I'm in love. And he's like, well, it will happen. It will, maybe, it will happen. You guys will grow and you'll become more in love. And I was like, aren't we supposed to be in love before we get married? I was so confused, so confused. So, ended up getting married. Ended up using in the bathroom. I ended up using before I walked down the aisle. I remember having to tell all the girls in my bridal party, like, I needed to use the bathroom, and I would be out in a minute, and I snorted a big old fat line right before then. Walked down the aisle high, went to my reception high, got high in the bathroom at my reception. I pretended I was drunk, so that way I could just like go to sleep afterwards, after we got married. And we went on our honeymoon. My mom had planned this like getaway for us to go to In-N-Out breakfast, or a breakfast inn, whatever they're called, in Monterey. And then I remember sitting in the bathtub and saying, oh, I want to go take a bath and relax before we go out to dinner. And I brought all my paraphernalia in there with me. And at this time, he still had no idea that I was using. No one knew I was using in my family or people around me. I had a couple friends, a very, very dear best friend who had been in my life for years. She knew that I was using, and then the people that I got it from. But no one else knew I was using. And in fact, that very, very dear friend, I didn't even invite to the wedding. My mom had planned who was coming, who was going to be my wedding party, all of that. So it was a very just weird time. And so I'm in the bathtub with all my paraphernalia, and it all falls in the bath. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I was getting ready to snort a line, and it just all fell in the bath. Okay, maybe this is a sign I'm not supposed to be using anymore. This is a sign. This is a sign. I always had those moments. This is my sign. And I always had the moments of like, oh dear God, please help me. Please don't let me die. I feel really shaky. Please, 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 Lord. Oh my gosh. I just snorted a big, huge line, and I feel really shaky, and what's going to happen to me? And I'd have all these like panic moments and stuff. And I, would beg him to help me through it. So we go out to dinner that night. I'm getting a phone call from my mom. She just can't handle my son. She can't handle babysitting. She's just been through this wedding and everything she's planned. And my son threw powder all over the bedroom. And I'm thinking it's cute on one end. And then I'm getting all stressed because my mom's stressed out on the other end. I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid just grabbed his baby powder and like sprinkled it all over his bedroom. Oh my gosh, of course it's my child. And I remember us having to leave and head home because my mom couldn't handle it. So I'm going to grab some water. I hope I still have all of you with me. This is a long video. And anyway, go home. I figure, okay, that was my sign. I'm not going to use anymore. Instantly, I started gaining weight. That was in May. And then I also ended up getting a job at our local pizza factory, actually Round Table Pizza. Oh, and prior to that, I'm not going to go backwards, but my son was 4 at that point in 1998 when we got married. And during that time, I had gotten fired from the bank And not due to them finding out about drugs. It was because I had too many days that I called in being sick. If my son was sick, I'd call in sick. If he had an issue, like I always want to be there for my son. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to call in sick. Like he's way more important. And it wasn't even due to lack of sleep because of using and all this stuff. Like it was because of calling in sick from him, doctor's appointments, whatever. And then one time in that whole time I worked at the bank, I ended up short. My drawer was short $100, and it had to do with Christmas money. We were given this Christmas money, and I don't know what happened to it. Like that's what it was called. I don't even want to go into details on it, but it was called Christmas money. And for our drawer in our bank, and when I cashed out that night, I don't know what happened to it. So because of that, they wrote me up, and I was fired. And then I got hired at Presbyterian preschool. So I was working at the Presbyterian preschool where my son was going. He started there when he was 3. I was using. I went into the bathroom sometimes, and I would snort in there at the Presbyterian preschool. And I loved being with those kids, and I played with those kids, and I was the teacher assistant. So I assisted her and everything, helping with the kids. I would clean up on the playground. I would play on the playground. Like being around kids I loved it. It's what helped motivate me, inspire me, make me happy. It just made me happy. So anyway, now going back to this, working at Round Table Pizza, like I said, I was working there and I was eating. I wasn't using, and not by I really wanted to at that point, but I didn't have the means to be able to get it, meaning like money-wise and stuff. I'd never had to pay for it, so I just didn't know, and I kind of lost contact with the girl I had been getting it from and stuff, and then I found some people that I would get it here and there from, but I couldn't be consistent with it like I wanted to and stuff. And so I was like, you know what? This is another sign. I want a baby again. Let me go back to after my dad had passed away. I'm sorry I'm taking you back, but there's so much that has happened in my life. After my dad died, I wanted a baby. I absolutely wanted a baby. And I was in a really bad relationship. I was with a guy that I had met when I was 14. And it was such an adult relationship. That's a whole different testimony. But anyway, I was with him, and he left for the summer to go be with his family out of state. And during that time, this is how I met my son's father, who I actually had known when I was in 6th grade. But a friend of mine said, oh, remember my cousin that you've known, from me and stuff, like whatever. He's single, and I know you're not happy being with the guy that you are right now, and we're having this 4th of July party. Would you like to come and hang out and stuff? And so I did. And again, this was a few months after my dad had passed away. And so I decided to go to this 4th of July party and meet this guy, and I did. And so that was July, and a few weeks later we had slept together, and I'm sure that's when I got pregnant. And I told him, I stopped taking my birth control pills. I want to get pregnant. I want a baby. Yep. I really, really, really wanted a baby. So now let's fast forward to 1998, where I'm working at this pizza parlor. And again, it was in my head. I was like, it's a sign. I want a baby. I want a baby. And every time I try and bring that up to my mom, oh my gosh, you don't need another child. You don't need a baby. You're way too young, blah, blah, blah. You guys just got married and this and that. And I would bring it up to him, and he'd say, well, we don't really have the money, and my mom was like, I'm not supporting another child and this and that. And I had been on welfare and Medi-Cal and all this stuff. And so it just was like this turmoil in my head. I was like, well, how can I have a baby? How can I get pregnant and not tell anyone? because I'm on birth control. Well, what did I do? I stopped taking my birth control again, and I went into the condoms that my husband would use, and I say husband because he was my husband at the time, my ex-husband, and I got a safety pin and I poked some holes in it and stuff, and I think I did that a couple times without him knowing, without anyone knowing, just so I could get pregnant, and I got pregnant. I got pregnant with a baby girl. And the first baby, I was like, I really want a boy. I really want a boy. The last baby that my dad had seen before he passed was his friend's son. They had just had a brand new baby boy, and he came to the hospital to see my dad, and his name was Levi. So I really, really wanted a boy. And I knew I was going to name him Levi. And so with this, I was like, I want a girl. I want a baby girl. I really want a girl. And I didn't even have boy names picked out or anything. And sure enough, with the ultrasound that I had, I was going to have a girl. So I got pregnant, and obviously, so I wasn't using, I'd stopped using, a few weeks prior to getting pregnant and stuff. And so I didn't use it all through my whole pregnancy, gained all this weight again, like a tremendous amount of weight. And I have this beautiful, amazing baby girl. Oh, again, my life was just, was amazing. It's those kids that made me forget about everything in life. Made me forget about losing my dad, the emotional stress I always had with my mom, things that had happened in my life, using drugs, like all of it. Like those kids were my light. They are my light. And I have this baby girl, and so happy, but yet so depressed. But at least for that moment, and those moments there with her and my son, and seeing my daughter and son together it was amazing. Again, I knew I didn't want to be married. I was not in love. I loved the father of my children. He was the father of them, and good dad, and all that stuff. I didn't know what I wanted in life. I just wanted my kids. I just wanted to be happy. And I wanted to be thin. Yeah. What happens in life where we put all this pressure on us to want to look a certain way? So that's 1999 now, and I have my baby girl and my son who's 4, daughter being born, and I'm working at this preschool, and I wasn't using at the time, and that's where I say I was on and off for 10 years, because the time through my pregnancy and a few months after, I did not use, but it wasn't that in my mind I was never going to use again. I knew in my mind I wanted to. I knew in my heart, my mind, everything that I wanted to. So I then got the summers off, because you didn't work so many weeks working at the preschool. And what was I at the time? I was 21, having my daughter. So here I have 2 kids at the age of 21, and one of them being 4. and I just was trying to be the mom, still being a moms and kids, and trying to do all the right things and make everybody else happy and please everybody else. And those everybody else were mostly like my mom, just trying to live life as best as I could, and trying to be the best mom that I could. And I did not want to work. All I ever wanted to do was just stay at home with my kids. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. But of course, that didn't pay the bills. And my mom just thought that was just the craziest idea ever. And I decided that when my daughter was 4 months old, that I was going to stop nursing her so that I could start using again. I got in contact with the girl I had been in contact with, and yep, her brother was still making it and selling it and this and that. And so I got hold of her and was at it again. So again, we're talking 1999, and I decided to start using. And for whatever reason, it's like August, September, October, whatever that was. Let's see. My daughter was born in June, so and I remember she was 4 months old. So June, July, August, September, October it was. It was October that year that I started back up again. And I continued and continued, and then I then quit at the preschool. Just wasn't working for me anymore. It was too much. My son wasn't there anymore. He was now gonna be in kindergarten, and I remember I got a job at a cafeteria for a school that my mom was teaching at the time. So I was just kind of like job hopping, just kind of doing my thing, doing whatever my mom wanted me to work at the school cafeteria. I absolutely hated it. Oh my gosh. And I was a person who was very outspoken. I was very angry, and I would the lady wanted me to clean the walls because she spilled tomato sauce on it. And I'm like, that's not in my job description. I am not cleaning walls. That is not meant for me. I'm not doing that. So sure enough, I was fired. And then I saw a job opening for Bonfanti Gardens, which is now called Gilroy Gardens, in Gilroy, garlic capital of the world. So I applied for this job, and this was now we're talking like 2001. So I kind of fast forwarded through a lot of stuff, but it was the same old stuff, like using, fighting with my husband at the time, with my mom, going from preschool, working at the preschool, to working at this cafeteria, to her still controlling our money, our finances, all this kind of stuff, living with my brother in my mom's home. My mom moved in with my grandma, like all this stuff going on. My mom now was off of her treatment from her cancer treatment and stuff. She obviously lived longer than a year, like they told her. All this stuff going on. Just wild. Just every day was just something in my life. And the one thing that just made me happy, or the two things I should say, were my children. Yeah. I'd get high and take them to the park, take them to the duck pond, all this kind of stuff. So anyway, 2001. Yes, I'm getting hired at Bonfanti Gardens as their entertainment, I don't know, one of their management personnel and entertainment and stuff. And I took on this management position, like, oh, heck yeah, this is awesome. I could be a manager. I can schedule and plan and do all this and that. So I was a manager, and I was in charge of all the characters that walked around, and part of the entertainment department, and overseeing some of that. And we had our greenhouse that we would stay in the back scenes of the park, and I learned how to shut down the whole park and this and that. And I was still using here and there, like the days that I could get it, I'd get it from people that I knew that used to be my friends in Hollister. Like now I had lost contact with this girl that I had met at Hill Business College, all this stuff. And then I'm meeting all these new people at Gilroy Gardens. And guess what? I met another new girl who I started opening up and sharing my testimonies with. And guess what? She was smoking crystal meth. And she asked if I had ever smoked. I'm like, no, I've never done that before. I've only snorted it. Oh my gosh, you can smoke this stuff? Okay. That sounds like way easier, because my nose is like really hurting now, and I'm bleeding and getting bloody nose. It's like just not working for me anymore. So, heck yes, I'll meet you outside of the park and learn how to do this. And so I did. So 2001, I started smoking crystal meth, and I was working at this park and making so much money. I was getting raises left and right. I was working all these hours, and I was lying about how much money I was making because I didn't want anyone in my family to know. And at this point, still nobody knew I was using. I was not as small as I was. Like when I first started, I could use, and I was so immune to it, I could eat a big old meal right afterwards. Some days I could go 2-3 days without eating, but I'd pretend. I'd sit and have meals with people, and I'd pretend I was chewing my food, and I'd eat enough to make it look like that I actually ate my meal or I was full. And I had all the tricks and everything. I could pull one over everyone, and they did not know I was using. Swear my father's grave. Um, so then grab some water here. So then that was in Gilroy. So I meet all these people in Gilroy. I'm hanging out with this new girl who I work with, who then is introducing me to other people I can get it from. I'm making all this money, so I was paying for it here and there. But I was also doing favors for people, driving them here and there, doing all this and that, and they like reimbursed me with crystal meth as my payment. So hey, I was doing good. I was doing really good. And that's when I learned I could start shoplifting. Also, I was shoplifting in stores to get things for people to get my drugs. And I was going through all kinds of stuff. I did not want to be with my husband at that time. I wanted a divorce so bad. He was working graveyard shifts. I was sneaking people in our house while he was at work. These new friends that I had met, they'd drive to my place, and we'd get high in my bedroom. My brother lived in the house. I was sneaking people in. The kids would be asleep, just so I could get high. There were multiple times I would just stay up by myself and do this, because that was the best time for me. I loved doing that by myself. And yeah, I was still involved with the preschool. I'm sorry, I wasn't at that time. That was 2001. My daughter wasn't in preschool yet. So anyway, so I take that back. I wasn't. That's later on. I was. So anyway, 2001 comes, and that's actually the year of 9/11. I know exactly where I was. I had just got done using that morning and looked at the news and saw what was going on. I remember that day to a T. And it was soon after that that I decided that I really truly wanted a divorce. I did not want to be with him any longer. And a lot of that stemmed from, one, I had an affair with someone at the park I was working at. And two, I knew it wasn't fair to him. I was living this life that he had no idea about. And that wasn't, I was feeling all the guilt and stuff inside. And I just knew that wasn't right. And so during this time, also working at Gilroy Gardens, I was also working for a friend of mine. They owned their own business, a produce business, and I was working for them. They didn't know I was using. They would ask me questions, and I would lie about it. So I'm sure they knew maybe, but didn't fully know. And during this time, I had planned, this was right after 9/11, I was helping them plan a huge event in Philadelphia, right? Yeah. And the plan was to help them plan this event and stuff, and they were paying me, and again, I was lying about how much I was getting paid. They paid me so good. super, super good, because I wanted to be an events coordinator and all this kind of stuff. And so I planned this, and I flew, this group of us over there, and I planned the itinerary, like did all this high. And that was the first time I ever flew high. And what I did was I packed all my paraphernalia inside a baby sock, and then I put it in a condom, and I stuck it inside me. And I hope I'm not giving anybody idea. I'm just trying to tell you like what I did. And then I was able to insert that inside of me. Yep. And make it through the terminal and stuff to be able to get on the plane. And flew all the way there, would get high when I was there, everything. Like, it just was a wild whirlwind, like, time of my life. It just, oh my gosh. And anyway, with flying back home and stuff, I remember being on the plane and talking with my friend at the time and just being like, it's it, I'm done. I want a divorce. I don't want to be married anymore. And so, it was probably a few months later. It was, I think before Christmas, it did come out that I wanted a divorce. And so we separated at that time. That was in 2001, we separated. And 2 years later, I was actually divorced, where it actually was finalized. So through that time, there was a lot of chaos going on between my mom and I. I wasn't working. I was trying to find jobs here and there, but I'd lie like, oh, they're not hiring. Oh, they didn't hire me, or I wouldn't show up for interviews. I just wanted to I just wanted to be with my kids. And then I just didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't know. If it wasn't for my kids, I know that I had thought about suicide. I had thought about it, but that's it. It didn't really go into deep thoughts because my kids were just more important to me, but yet I was still using. So I was lost. I was lost. So lost. During that time, my mom, I can't think of the years right now, but she wanted me to go to cosmetology school through welfare. At that point, I was getting to a point where you need to either go into school or find a job. We can't continue to pay what we're paying you. So I enrolled in school. They paid for it for me. CalWorks is what it was called. And so they paid for cosmetology school, babysitter, gas, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, it made sense. I kind of liked doing hair. The idea sounded good, and I was pretty good with that kind of stuff. So I'm like, sure, it sounds good, but I don't like school. I've never liked school. Does this mean I have to study? Which it did. It required a lot. So I was on again, off again, using while I was in school. I tried to stop, but the routine of me having to get up early and take my kids to daycare and then get to a different town to go to school, to be there all these hours. Like, I was using the whole time. And finally, in 2004, I was living in my mom's home with my brother at the time. We were both living there, and I wasn't paying rent. And my mom was living with her mom at the time so that my brother and I could live in this home, and then I had the kids there and stuff. And so, another long story short, her and I got in another, like, probably one of the biggest fights we had ever been in, because this time it was physical, not just verbal and mental and all that. It was actually physical. And I called the police on her, all this kind of stuff. And I had just been kicked out. I think that's what the fight was over. I had been kicked out of cosmetology school at 1,200 hours. You need 1,600 hours to graduate. I was kicked out at 1,200 hours. I know. Well, like, you would think, what am I doing? What am I doing? No wonder I stressed her out. So I was kicked out of cosmetology school. We got in this fight, all this going on, and I called the police on her, and she retaliated and decided to evict me and the children out of her house. So there was no way I could get out of it. We were going to be evicted in 30 days, and in my mind I was like, she's not going to evict me. She says she's going to do all this stuff to me. Yeah, right. She will not evict her grandchildren and her daughter. She would not do that to us. And if she did, I will just do this and I'll do that and blah, 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 blah. That was my attitude. And we were evicted. We were. She went through with it. Probably one of the best things that ever happened. So thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mom, up in heaven. I have since thanked her before she passed, but she did. She evicted us. We got to stay at a hotel room through the welfare department. I had told them I was evicted and stuff, and so they grant you like a certain amount of money to stay someplace for a certain amount of days and hours or whatever until you find something. So we were staying at a motel, my kids and I, and my mom still let me keep the car because the car was always in her name. I never owned a vehicle. And during that time, my friend, her and her husband at the time were living in a house they were renting, and they had just moved out, and I knew that home was for rent, and I manipulated my grandma at the time to be able to get my kids and I into this place, promising her that I would get a job or I would go back to school and this and that, and I'd be able to afford the rent, which was like $1,600 a month. Like, how was I even going to be able to do that? But I was going to do it. I was determined. I was going to do it because that was me. No one's ever going to tell me no. Like, I will prove them wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I convinced my grandma to get us this place. She said she was giving me 6 months to get myself back on my feet, and I had to get a job or go back to school and this and that, and just wasn't happening because I didn't want it to. I pretended like I was trying, but it wasn't. I was using more than I ever had in my entire life, of using, my span of using, and I was living in this gorgeous house with my kids and great neighborhood, and I knew I had to find a job, and through all of this, I also was doing stuff online. It was the first time I ever got online and forums. I don't even know what that is really, but forums were the big thing, and I was involved with forums and music stuff and everything. And this comes to the point of now we're talking like January of 2005 and or somewhere around there. And we had been in this home for a little while, and again, I'm involved with music, and I loved listening to Eminem. I was a huge Eminem fan. You guys know Eminem, right? Slim Shady, Eminem, who was part of a group D12 that I was so into. I had been to one of their concerts, in San Francisco with a friend of mine, and just, oh my gosh, this music world. And I was on forums talking to guys that worked for Eminem, supposedly worked for him, all this kind of stuff. And so a guy from D12 was going to be starting this new record label called Iron Fist Records. His name is Proof, who now since has passed, rest in peace. And I was like, well, I'm gonna work for this new company. I'm gonna be their secretary or whatever, and I'm gonna apply for a job there, and I'll just move my kids all the way to Michigan. And I'm gonna prove my mom wrong, that I will make all this money and this and that. But how am I gonna get there? So how am I gonna get there for this interview? Because I was doing all this stuff online, and I was talking to these guys, and they're like, oh yeah, come work for us. We are going to need a secretary, this and that. And so what did I do? I took money from my mom's account. I bought myself a plane ticket. I asked my friend to watch my kids for me, make sure they got to school. Bless her beautiful, amazing, kind heart, because she knew the state of mind I was in. She knew what I was doing. Took the kids for me. She's an amazing mother herself, always has been. And I knew that my kids would be in great hands with her. And I trusted her with all my heart with my kids. And I, again, took all my paraphernalia, wrapped it all up, stuck it inside of me. Yes, we're talking, you know where. Got on the plane all the way to Detroit, Michigan by myself. Got myself a cab. I had already booked a hotel room for me. Go to this hotel room, calling people that knew I was going to be there. Guy picks me up, takes me to Applebee's for dinner. We went to a Myers place, which I guess is like a Walmart. We went shopping there because I needed some hygiene stuff. I had a horrible yeast infection. Couldn't imagine why. I wonder what that was from. And doing all this stuff with this guy that I had no idea who he was, all the way in Detroit, Michigan, thinking I'm going to meet people that work with Eminem and this Iron Fist Records company that's going to start. Takes me out to dinner to this Applebee's. We went back to his house. I'm in the bathroom, using his bathroom, and there was a little kissing that went on, but that was it. I freak out. Asked him if he would take me back to the hotel. I said I did not feel good. I finally told him I have a horrible yeast infection. Like, I'm bleeding down there. I don't know what's going on. Thank God that scared him. He took me back to the hotel, dropped me off, and I'm sleeping in the hotel. I remember the cleaning lady coming in, trying to clean, asking if I was okay, this and that. I remember I had a flip phone at the time with I purchased these little cards with minutes. I called my friend, made sure my kids were okay. They were good. She said, I think your mom's looking for you. Your mom tried calling me or getting a hold of me. I just told her you were out of town, blah, blah, blah. I next day called the other guy I'm supposed to get in contact with. He comes to my hotel room. Sexual innuendo stuff happens. No, I did not have intercourse with this guy, but other, stuff. And then I told him what was going on, blah, 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 scared him away. And now it comes time I'm supposed to fly home. Not once was there anything mentioned about Iron Fist Records, about working for Eminem, nothing. I get myself a cab, I get back to the airport, I get back on the plane, same way. Get home, my friend picks me up. That is not luck, people. This will be later on in my conversation. That is not luck. Praise the Lord. I get back home. Police are at the house. They know my family. Amanda, what are you doing? What's going on? Nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Amanda, I really hope you and your mom can work through this and that. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I went and spent the night at a friend's house for a couple days. I don't know what you mean. I didn't fly anywhere. I didn't take money from my mom's account. Oh my gosh, what year are we in? Finally, still months. I couldn't get a job. I didn't want to. My grandma's, Mandy, you need to get yourself together. What is going on with you? I'm like, nothing. I don't know. And they've been questioning me, asking if I'm using drugs. My mom wanting to take me to the hospital, have drug tests done. I'd be off using for a couple days. I'd pass the test. I was good. She's like, then what is going on with you? I don't understand it. This and that. I'm like, I'm just depressed. I just don't like life. I'm not happy. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. People say you hit rock bottom. I don't know if I necessarily hit rock bottom. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I had exhausted myself. One day, I went to my mom and I said, "You're right. I've been using." I went to my mom and grandma and I broke down and I told them I had been using. And that I was sorry. But there just wasn't a sincere sorry. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I remember just saying, I'm sorry, you're right. I started using years ago. They were just kind of dumbfounded. They didn't know it had been that long. I know I hurt them really, really bad. And at that point, I think what it was for me was I had a friend in my life at that time who was using as well. She actually contacted me one time, asked if I was still using, and I told her yes, and then we started hooking up, and she was probably at the point where she was going to lose her kids, and I think that's when it kind of hit me, like, I still have my kids. Nothing's ever happened to them. And I think that's when it kind of clicked for me, thank God. And I went to my family and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't want to live here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. But I want to be a mom. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know what to do. And at that point, my mom had an apartment in Roseville, California, because she was dating a guy from Sacramento, and it was her like getaway weekends place that she was renting, a little apartment she was renting there. And she said, I'm going to move you there. Let's get you an apartment there, find a school, start back at school, and you're going to move there. I said, okay. I didn't fight her on it. It was like the first time ever I didn't fight her. I found a school there that would accept all my 1,200 hours of cosmetology school. I didn't even see this apartment. I just let my mom do it all. Got myself a U-Haul. I was so scared. I was so worried. So I took whatever welfare money that I had. I still was lying to my mom at that time, lying to everyone because I told them I'd stop using. And I really hadn't. And I remember buying like whatever, I don't know grams or anything, but like $600 worth of crystal meth before I left. And my plan was, okay, well, this will get me there. It will get me to moving in. It will get me a few months there because I won't know what to do, how to cope, my kids are going to start this new school and this and that. So basically 2005, I moved to Roseville, and I think that was July of 2005. And I just took my kids. I just got a U-Haul and took my kids and drove to Roseville to this apartment. And I had been signed up with this school. I did it all like through phone and on the computer and stuff. And I was signed up, but I couldn't start until January. So we moved there in July. The school had already started because they started earlier there. So my kids were like a week late in starting this new school. And I couldn't start until January of 2006 because at this school, you went as freshmen and stuff. And so I had to start my course all like from the beginning, even though I got to keep my hours, which I didn't mind because testing was always hard for me. I just wanted to be there just to learn what I needed to learn for my state board tests. So we get to Roseville, we move in. It was a 2-bedroom. They called it a townhouse, really teeny tiny apartment. And kind of more in like the ghetto of Roseville. And lived in this apartment. My kids are going to this new school, and I'm going to be starting school. And I couldn't find a job in between that time. I was trying to go to school, and I did stop using when I got there. Like, my plan worked. I completely stopped using. In fact, I didn't even finish what I had. I think I threw it away, got rid of it. I was going to stop using. I didn't want to, but I knew I had to, if that makes sense. I didn't want to. It was like it was being forced on me. So what did I do? I laid around and I ate. I always would turn to food instead of the drugs. So I laid around. My kids would go to school. I binged ate. I gained enormous amount of weight. Come January, I'm starting at this school, meeting these people. Didn't like it, but I was trying to do my best. I was trying to do what people wanted me to do. All this kind of stuff. And I graduated within 2 or 3 months. I got my few hours that I needed. I actually was even going to night school, leaving my kids home at night, having them take care of themselves. I was super, super determined to just finish school and get started and get my license. And I wanted a job. I wanted to do better. And the anxiety kicked in because I had a job when I finished school as a receptionist at a brand new Supercuts that opened, but I couldn't take my state board test for like a whole nother month. So it was already set at this Supercuts that as soon as I passed my state board, I could work there as doing hair. So I freaked out. I had anxiety, and good thing was my next door neighbors, they were users. In fact, he just got out of prison and got put in prison because of, I think he had, I don't know if he murdered someone. I don't know what it was. I don't know the whole story, but so I went next door, knock, knock, knock. Hey, still have any hookups? Of course he did. He and his wife, like, they knew what I was doing. So I started using again. Come time for my state board test, I was using. Went and took my state board high, passed my test, thank the Lord. Started my new job high. I did not want to live there anymore. So I decided I was going to be moving to Riverbank, California. So I chose Riverbank, California because I have family that lives there. My brother and sister-in-law live there. And I have family in Modesto. And the whole thing was, well, a new Great Clips was going to be opening up there in the shopping center, and we can help watch the kids while you work and this and that. And I was like, yeah, that actually does sound really good. I do not like Roseville. I did not like living in Roseville. I didn't like being there by myself. I didn't know anybody. I actually thought it was a really good idea. So I'm high, right? I had relapsed. So basically that's called relapse. I relapsed and was using again and moved to Roseville. And again, my plan was, okay, I'll get myself moved in and I'll stop using and stuff. And but yeah, I just continued. I was already working at this new Great Clips. I actually got hired as a manager right away, as one of their, what's called a shift manager right away. And my kids were in school. Oh, bless their hearts. My kids are so good. Oh, my kids were so, so good. I started this new school, and again, I'm lying. No one knows I'm using. I mean, I'm like 240 pounds at the time. I would use and go eat donuts. I could use and go eat half a gallon of ice cream. I'd use and go to McDonald's, have 2 quarter pounders with cheese. And so no one knew. Again, I could hide it. Like, they just did not know. And one day I took the kids to school and getting ready to go to work. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed. I was trying to use, I was holding my pipe and trying to light it, and I heard this voice in my head, and I thought it was my dad, my father who passed. I hear, Mandy, enough is enough. And I sat there and I just cried. I was like, that's it. You're right. Just face life. Just do it. You're good at what you do. You can do hair. Look at everything you've been through. You can do it. You can do it. Gosh, I don't even remember what I had on. And I got up from the bed and I walked outside. And I always kept my pipe and stuff in a baby sock. And so I put the pipe in the baby sock. I was standing at the trash and I put it on the floor and I just stepped on it. I smashed it. I threw it away. And I took my little baggie of crystal meth and I just dumped it out. I dumped it out and I threw the bag away. And that was it. That was it. I got my stuff together. I went in the house. We were renting this little tiny house at the time. And I was renting it. I was. My own money. And I think that's when it hit me. Because it was the first place that I ever, got myself. From a real job. And I went to work. I was so scared. I remember feeling so scared. I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to. I don't want to continue. I'm done. And that was in August of 2006. I had a plan. I was going to move back to Hollister. I was going to save money, and I was going to move back to Hollister. That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be back in Hollister. That's where my kids wanted to be. They never wanted to leave to begin with. I took them from everything they knew, their friends, everything. Their dad, who was closer, everything. And I had a plan. I was going to do it. And at that point, I started talking. I'd always talk in my head. I didn't know it was praying at the time, but I'd always, oh dear God, please help me. Oh dear God, please help me. Help me get through the workday. Help me save money. Help me get back to Hollister. Help me, help me, help me, help me. Oh, and I was binge eating so bad. Oh my gosh, I couldn't wait for the kids to go to school so I could just make myself huge ice cream sundaes. I'd eat a whole box of cereal with a sundae, and then I'd go for a walk at the park. And then I'd come back home and I'd just eat and eat and eat and eat. And then I'd go to work. And at work, I'd take some of my money that I made from tips and I'd go get food and I'd sit in the back and I'd eat and eat and eat. So food became another addiction, which it was as a child as well. And so I was gaining weight, and then I would lose weight because then I'd go a week without eating. Then I'd make myself not eat. Okay, you can't do this yourself. You're going to gain too much weight. And you can't go back to using drugs. I don't want to do that. So I, go for walks and stuff. And then I actually was going through a lot of menstrual stuff at this time. Like my body was just off and going through all this stuff, and my tummy problems were acting up again. And all this stuff, I'm like, I don't want to use. I don't want to. I'm not going to. I really don't want to. And then I did it. My plan, it works. I had saved money, and before you know it, 2007 comes, June, and I'm applying for a job at a Supercuts in Hollister, and I'm having an interview there. I'm looking at apartments in Hollister. They had an apartment available, and before you know it, July 2007, I moved back to Hollister, moved my kids back and stuff, and I did it. I did it on my own. I got my own apartment. I still didn't have a car in my name. It was all in my mom's name. She still had, some control. I was tired of lying about like how much money I was making, this and that. And so she'd ask, oh, I need money for this because you owe me for that. And I'm like, oh, okay, here, this is what I have. This and that. But anyway, I started working at Supercuts. I got busy right away because I knew a lot of people in that town, and I was good. I will give myself that. I like cutting hair. I actually really like cutting hair. It wasn't a passion of mine, but I liked it. And so I was doing hair, and I was working at the Supercuts. My kids were happier. They were in school. We had our own 3-bedroom apartment. It was a good size apartment. We got along with the neighbors that lived below us. My son and the little boy downstairs became really, really good friends. My daughter made a really good friend, and having their sleepovers again, I felt like I was getting closer with my family again. Just, I felt better from not using. I felt like I was like having right talks with God in my head and stuff, and I just was always thankful for him and trying to pray, which again, my praying was talking to him, but I still had a lot of stress and turmoil and stuff with my mom. And then one day I was cutting my mom's hair at Supercut. She came in, got her hair cut, and I was cutting her hair, and I said, I'm so tired of being as big as I am. I really want to lose weight, and I keep trying. Like, I've been going for these walks. I'm trying to not eat out as much, but I just don't know what to do. And I think I had lost like maybe about 15, 20 pounds before then, just from walking and not eating out at like Taco Bell and McDonald's quite as much. And so she said, why don't you join Weight Watchers with me? I'm going to go this weekend, I think it was, and it was like a Saturday, and I said, okay. She's like, I'll pay for it for you. I'll get you started, whatever. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'll give it a try. And that was 2007, in the September of 2007. And I went to my first Weight Watchers meeting then. And after the meeting, my mom watched the kids, and I went grocery shopping. I was grocery shopping for 2 hours. I was using that little slide card, right? Like sliding, checking the back, reading all these labels, and not ingredients at the time. They didn't teach you that, but they, look at the fiber, look at this, look at that, slide your little card, see how many points. I'm like, ooh, this is a game now. I got that. I can play this kind of game. I never played sports. I never danced. I never did any of this, but I can play this game. And usually games were like Candyland and Uno and Skippo for me. That's about all I could handle. So I was like, oh, I got this. I got it. First week, I was making food and stuff. And then and I lost like 5 pounds or 6 pounds. I don't know what it was. Like I think it was closer to 5 pounds. My first meeting, or my first week. And I was ecstatic. I'm like, what? That's all I have to do? Track my food? I could track my food. I was tracking my food when I was pregnant with my son because I had gained so much weight. Doctors wanted me to start tracking my food. I'm like, oh, I got that. I used to watch my mom and dad track their food when they did Weight Watchers when I was little. Like these meetings, I love this kind of stuff. I used to go to meetings with my parents when I was little because I loved hearing everyone talk and share their stories. I'm like, this is fun for me. Oh my gosh, I love this. I love being surrounded by all these people that are sharing their stories on what they did through the weekend. what they ate and their recipes that worked for them, and how they exercised and what exercise was for them. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I took this Weight Watchers thing pretty well. I mean, it just became my life, and I felt really good, and I was talking to God more, and I was talking to my clients more. I was sharing my stories. I was sharing things about my dad. First time I'd ever done that and shared personal stuff, and it just was like, I just felt good. And I was losing weight, and I was feeling good, and it took me about 8-9 months, and I made my goal through Weight Watchers, and I had lost a lot, over 60 pounds, and through eating better and walking and jogging. I taught myself how to jog, and but I'd look in the mirror, and I still was not happy with my body. I had all this loose skin everywhere, and I was like, I think that's why people work out. I think that's why they like do weights and stuff. And back in the day in high school, I had worked at a gym as a daycare person. When my dad was still alive, I think I was 13 at the time, and so I used to watch people in their bodies, and I was so intrigued, and would always hope and wish, right, that I could have a body like that, and I never did, and I always was called fat, and I was always bullied in school for my looks and the color of my skin and being fat, and all this kind of stuff, being called ugly and stupid all the time, and just, again, another whole different testimony. And so I just, still wasn't happy with my body. I was happier, but I wasn't completely happy. And so now we're talking 2008. I think it took me until about 2009 where I finally, I joined a gym. My son was doing kickboxing and Muay Thai, grappling and stuff at the time. And so they offered classes, and I was there, and then I signed up at the local gym, and I was doing their aerobics classes and trying to use the treadmill, and that was a huge thing for me. I was so embarrassed to go into a gym, and I didn't know anything about weight training. I didn't even know that was a word. I didn't even know weight training was a word. I just thought everything was working out. So I was taking classes, and one of the classes was in the evening that a husband and wife got together, the local gym, that they were the owners, and they offered a class where like you kind of went from machine to machine, and it was a group thing, and you did these workouts and stuff, and I kind of learned the machines a little bit and stuff, but just wasn't what I was like feeling. I mean, I was liking it, but I wanted more. I wanted to know more. I loved working out now. I felt better about myself, but still not where I wanted to be. And then I'd been single all these years, so remember, I separated in 2001. I had little flings here and there, but nothing serious. And now I'm in 2009. And so I had been single all those years. So doing hair, trying to do my own thing. And I actually got fired in 2009 from Supercuts because I spoke up to one of the girls. I didn't like how she had talked to me, and we had some beef going on between us and stuff. And so I took her to the back room, and I was cussing her out. I was a horrible foul mouth at the time. Horrible. Like, the F word always came out of my mouth. That was always like F-bombs here and there. Like, I'd grab my kids and be like, did you effing hear me? Did you effing hear what I said? Like, horrible mouth. So I cussed her out, this and that, and then I got, she called the manager, and manager sent me home, and I knew I was going to get fired. I went in a couple days after, or a day after, and I grabbed all my stuff. I was like, oh, I have haircuts to do at home. I'm going to grab all my stuff. So, of course, then I got fired from there. What am I going to do? So I started my own business. I found a station to rent from two amazing ladies who knew my family and knew my past, knew so much about me, and they offered me to rent from them. I'm like, these ladies are saints. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Lord. Like, I remember being like, oh, thank you, Lord. Show me what I need to do. And I did. I rented the little room back there. I started with like little $8 haircuts. I had a yard sale to sell all this stuff so I could have money to buy my supplies to start my business there. And I did it. I did it. It was Hair by Amanda. So I was in 2009, and I'm at this gym. I'm around these like amazing ladies who are mentoring me, helping me more with hair, and then single, trying to do some online dating, not working and stuff. Finally get to this point in my life, I'm like, I'm done. I don't even want to meet a guy. I don't even care if I'm single for the rest of my life. And then 2010 comes, beginning of 2010, and by this point my kids were more involved with their dad. They'd go see him on the weekends. It was actually really, really nice. And so, because he was in and out of the picture, and so I was like, what do I do with myself? So I'd go to the gym on the weekend. I felt comfortable enough to do that, and I go to the gym, and I saw this guy one day. Oh my gosh, like the hottest guy I had ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, that guy's not from Hollister. I know all the people here. Like, he is not from here. Like, who is that guy? Like, I seriously was like, is he famous? Who is he? I could not stop thinking about that guy every time I'd go to the gym. Like, then I purposely wanted to go to the gym to see if I could see him again. I remember an acquaintance friend of mine at the time was like, whoa, I saw this one guy, like, he has like red hair, but it's really short. Like, he had tattoos all over. Like, and she's like, oh, is it that guy? Is it this guy? I'm like, no. Like, this guy's like, oh my gosh, he's the hottest guy I've ever seen. Anyway, never saw him again. And that first day that I saw him, I went home from the gym. I'm looking in the mirror, looking at my body, getting ready to take a shower because I was all sweaty and gross. And I'm grabbing my skin and I'm pulling in. I'm like, ugh, a guy like that, he would never, ever like me. Ever. Like, this is disgusting. What am I thinking? Like, just get him out of your mind, Amanda. Like, it makes me sad because I still just did not like myself. And I just remember thinking, like, this is a super hot guy. Like, he wouldn't give me the time of day. A few weeks later, I'm dropping my kids off with their dad, who lived in Salinas at the time. And I dropped them off, and he had friends over and stuff. And he was actually being respectful. He's like, do you want to meet who's going to be here and stuff? Just because he knew how controlling I was. And I said, sure. So I met his friend. His name's Bub or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't really heard that name except for my friends that I knew. And her husband, her name's Danielle, and her husband's name is Bub. I'm like, oh, I haven't really heard that name before. And so I'm driving home and I'm thinking of them. And I remember listening to a Celine Dion song. And I just started crying because I started thinking of my dad. And just all these thoughts and just talking to God in my head and crying and driving and just like, where am I headed? What am I doing? Like, thinking of all the stuff I had done in my past and being so sad about it. And I walked through my front door, or the door to our apartment, and my phone rings, and I think it's like 9 o'clock at night or something. And I answer the phone, and she's like, Amanda, it's Danielle. It's Danielle. Right? I was just thinking of them. Remember that. It's Danielle. What are you doing? I said, I just dropped my kids off their dad and wet mop my floor. She's like, it's late at night on a Friday night. You are not going to wet mop your floor. There's this guy that I know, and I'm hanging out with him, and he's single. And at this time I sort of had Facebook, but I couldn't really use it. I didn't even know anything about it. I just had pictures on there, and sometimes my computer would work. It wouldn't work. It would. It wouldn't. I don't know. And so she's like, I just showed him your picture on Facebook. You got to get him. I'm on the phone. She's like, and she talks real fast. She's so cute. And she's like, you got to get on Facebook. You got to add him as a friend because he's waiting to talk with you. And look at his picture. Make sure like you think he's hot. And if you think he's hot, like let me know and we can set up a date. You know, we could do a group date or you could do a, you know, just a date with the two of you. We can, whatever, just, you know, let me know. I'm like, whoa, like slow down, like what? She's like, no, I told him you like to work out. He works out all the time. He's into that. He's into fitness. He's really buff. Like, I really think you'll think he's hot. He's hot. She was saying he was hot, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So I get on the computer and I type up this guy's name, Ron Moon. It was a guy I'd seen at the gym. Oh, I love him so much. I love my husband. It was the guy I had seen at the gym a couple weeks prior. I'm like, what? Oh gosh. He saw my picture. He wants to talk to me. Okay. So I added him as a friend and we just did a little chat. And I don't remember what we talked about. I really don't. I just remember we chatted a little bit on there and I said, sure, I'd like to hang out. I'd like to meet you. I think it was that kind of talk. And so I called her and I said, oh my gosh, I'd love to, but I don't want to do double, like something just told me I want to do a group thing. I did not want to do like one-on-one. And so long story short with that, we met, we've been together ever since. So, and that was in 2010 and I'm in 2019 right now. So, God is good. God works in some really crazy, awesome, mysterious ways. So 2010, I meet this guy and, on that date in a group, you know, he asked me so many questions and I was like, oh my gosh, like I am not used to this at all. Like I got a hot flash. Like, oh, are you hot? Let me open up the door for you. He opens up the door. I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, so you have 2 kids. Like, what do you do? Okay, you like to work out. You lost all this weight. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, what? And I was like, yeah, I was a meth addict for years. Like, all this stuff started coming out. I was like, yeah, I lost my dad. And he's like, oh my gosh. Like, he was so like into hearing me just talk. Like, he cared about me. Like, it was just interesting. I was not used to that. And I said, yeah, I work out and I got a personal trainer just a couple sessions and they tried showing me what to do and they weren't understanding what I wanted or needed. I think I know what I'm looking for. Like I want to do this and that, but I don't really know how. And he said, let's meet up. I'll meet you at the gym. I'll show you what to do. You can do one of my workouts. And so because of that guy and where he was at in his life, he had another date with someone else. So we didn't meet up like we were supposed to. It was actually like a week or 2 later and we met up at the gym and stuff. And I worked out with him. I remember we did a back workout that day and I was hooked. Absolutely hooked. I loved it. I had never been so sore in my life. I had worked out like a dude, like I had been wanting to. I was lifting weights. It was amazing. He taught me so then I started working out with him. It was like a nightly thing. He got off work, I'd meet him at the gym. My kids knew I was like meeting someone. And I was working out. He was showing me all these exercises. It felt so good. It's exactly what I knew I wanted and needed. And I had never seen this stuff. So I didn't know. I didn't go buy magazines on working out. I didn't have social media and that kind of stuff. It wasn't huge. Food prepping wasn't huge. Blah, 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 blah. All this stuff that's out there now, it was not there. And if it was, I did not know how to find it because I didn't know how to lead. I literally was being led by the Holy Spirit. And so he moves in with me and the kids and we start this relationship and we're working out. We decided to change gyms. This was in September 2010 and I was feeling a little better, still not seeing muscle definition like I wanted, but He was okay with my loose skin. He was liking me. He obviously moved in with me and the kids, so we were together. And so I decided to take a spin class. We joined this gym, and this new gym, and I decided to take what was called spin. I'd heard about it from The Biggest Loser, which that's a different story, but The Biggest Loser is literally what I used to watch all the time and would motivate me, and I'd be like, so maybe that's where I saw working out. But I was like, I want to do that one day. I want that. I want to work out like that. I want to lose weight like that. So that's what inspired me. Jillian and Bob, Jillian Michaels, Bob Harper. Oh my gosh, especially Jillian Michaels. They inspired me. So that's where all that came from. And then I take the spin class. And in fact, my very first spin class, I'm waiting for it to start, and this girl looks me up and down. She's like, oh, so this is your first class? And I was like, yeah, this is. And she's like, oh, good luck. You've never done this before? Good luck. I'm like, thanks. So I get on the bike, and I rode like as if I had been doing this my whole life. It was the most amazing workout I think I had done thus far. And besides weight training, cardio-wise. In fact, after the class, the instructor who knew my mom, knew my family and stuff, I knew of her, but I didn't know her personally. She came up to me and she's like, would you ever be interested in subbing one of my classes? I'm like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean like when you're not here, I would teach the class for you? She's like, yeah, don't worry. I'll lead you through it. I'll show you what to do. How about next week? I don't think it was that fast. I think we exchanged numbers, and then I think through texting a couple days later, she's like, how about next week sometime and stuff? So we set up a time, and I subbed my first class. I don't think it was really subbing because she was standing there next to me, and I was on the bike in front of the class, and she was like kind of talking me through it, and I was leading them, and I was like, hey, you guys, stand up, blah, 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 do this, She's like, it's your saddle, color your, like she was like coaching me to coach the class at the same time. Epiphany. Literally an epiphany. This is what you're supposed to do. I heard it. I knew it. I felt it. I knew it. I heard it. It was amazing. I was hooked. Remember, at this time I'm doing hair, I'm renting a station. I was like, that's it. How do I do this the rest of my life? How do I do this? I want to do this forever. Oh my gosh. So is this this is what it takes? Like, how do I make a class? How do I do this? Like, all these thoughts going through my head. Let's fast forward to, that's in 2010. And let's just say, I got my, let me have my train of thought here. That was in 2010, and it took me until 2012 to actually get certified. So I failed my test 2 times. And once you take that test, you had to wait like so many weeks in between to be able to take it again. So then I'd have to do more studying and then sign up for the next class. Plus you needed the money, plus you needed the study time, plus I needed the confidence. And not only that, in October of 2010, I had a tummy tuck, so I needed to recover from that. And then 2011, I had my first breast augmentation, so I needed to recover from that, and I'm trying to study and going through all these different things. Finally, 2012, I got certified as a group exercise instructor. And at that point, I was given classes at a gym. I don't want to go into big detail on that. I know this is such a long video, and I hope that there's maybe one person I've kept interested this whole time. But in 2012, I became a certified group exercise instructor. And my first classes actually were, and I believe that was in April or May. And my first classes were, I was given an opportunity to teach at an all-women's gym, even though at this time we were at our local Gold's gym. and I was subbing all those classes and stuff, but I had oh yeah, you can have classes. Oh no, sorry, we need to give them to someone else because she's been here longer than you. Oh wait, no, you can have the classes. Oh, I'm sorry, no, you can't have the classes now. So a lot of that kind of crap, excuse my language, but a lot of that. So this women's gym, one of their instructors had just quit, and they gave me this opportunity to have a class, boot camp. My husband came up with the name Body Shred Boot Camp. So I started teaching what was called Body Shred Boot Camp, and I formatted my own style, my own class. I wanted to bring weight training into a class setting. All these ideas were coming to me from God, but I can't do that stuff on my own. He would work through me, and I wouldn't tell people, like, because I didn't know where it came from. I'd be like, I'd start writing stuff down, and it's like, oh, wow, that's really good. Okay, and then I do the class. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, that is not for me. Like, where is this coming from? That comes from God. That is the Holy Spirit working through you. That is the power of the Holy Spirit working through you to do that. And so I was doing these classes, and then finally I did get classes at Gold's, and then I was meeting all these people. My classes became so full. It was so much fun. I loved it. I loved being in front of people, even though I had all these insecurities. And my husband and I were or my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, we were on the rocks. I was so jealous. Like, he'd look at a woman and I would freak out. I'm like, are you going to go be with her? I mean, that again in itself is a whole different testimony on jealousy and where I was. But we were back and forth, back and forth. He and my son did not get along. I was going through all this stuff with my mom still, like, just, oh my gosh, all these things. And the one thing at that point that kept me like sane and had me loving life and fun was teaching classes. I loved it. I just felt so comfortable. I didn't care how I looked doing movements. I was able to encourage others and help them and motivate them, and I loved it. And then I had thought about being a personal trainer, but I didn't quite know what that took. The only thing I knew that really took was passing a really big test, and I knew it had a lot to do. It had a lot to do with anatomy. And I was too scared. I was never good in school. I was always two grade levels behind. I was always taken out for special ed, reading and math classes. I just was always pushed along, like teachers would just pass me along to go to the next grade level. So testing was just, I was so scared. I was like, I don't know how I would be able to do this. I failed my group exercise 2 times before I even passed it the first, and it was so hard. The written test was hard, not the hands-on, not the practical part. I passed that my very first time. They asked you to get up and design a class at the training, at the certification training, and that was God. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never done that before. And you had to get up and do certain counts and walk people through like a mock class. And I passed it. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I could do this part. The written part, so in around, I don't know, I think it was like that summer going into fall, I met this lady who saw me working out at the gym. And I had like my guinea pigs that I was kind of training, family, friends, things like that. And because I wanted to get into it, but I didn't really know how, and I was too scared. And one day I was working with a lady, and this other lady, elderly lady, tiny little thing, saw me, and she knew the lady that I was working with and showing exercises. I don't really want to say training. I guess I was, but I wasn't a trainer at the time. And she knew that. And she introduced me to this other little lady. I'll call her the little lady. And she's like, oh yeah, I've seen you in here working out. Wow, you're good. You know, like you do this and that. And I really like that. Can I get your number? And I was like, sure. yeah, here you go, And she called me a couple days later and she said, I want you to train me. And I said, I can't train you. I'm not certified. And I didn't know her. She wasn't a family friend. She said, no, I want you to train me. This lady's 70 years old, spitfire, the cutest 70-year-old I had ever seen, super petite. I don't even think she's 5 foot, 100 pounds. She's like, no, I want you to train me. I don't care if you're not certified. I've seen you in the gym. I've seen you with other people. I know you teach classes. People I know have taken your classes. They love it. I want you to train me. I was like, I can't. She's like, I won't tell anyone. I won't tell anyone. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to try. Vicki, if you're watching this, I love you. God connected us for a reason, and you know that. As this woman, she inspired me so much. Oh my gosh, and it was her that, with my husband and stuff too, but they're just like, you need to get certified. You need, get certified, be a personal trainer. And I did, and I passed it my first time. I studied so hard, and I was so scared for that whole weekend. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday training, and the practical, no, I wasn't scared. It was the written. Luckily, it was in Los Gatos, and there were 4 or 5 people in my personal training class, so it was like a personal certification class. And I passed. And the gym owner, a week later, I was already training her and a couple of her friends, and it just started. I started training with the group training at $5 a session. With little Vicki, I think we were at $15 a session, somewhere around there. She would know more than that, $10 or $15, and she was so faithful. We'd meet, I think at that time when I first started, 2 days a week, 9 o'clock in the morning. I was not going to schedule haircuts or anything. I wanted to meet with Vicki. She was so my light. She talked to me about God and talked to me about my life, my mom, my kids, my husband, and she'd always tell me, do not give up, do not give up, do not give up on parenting. I wasn't talking to my son at the time. He had moved out. He was living with his dad because he did not get along with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend didn't get along with him. And this is where I come in to talk about my mom. My mom was bipolar manic depressive. So my whole life, I walked on eggshells from the time I can remember, being 5 years old, just being full of anxiety and fear and guilt, and just horribly being verbally and mentally abused. And I was her punching bag. But then on the other hand, she was the most amazing mother, and loved so much, and an amazing wife. And her and my dad just had this amazing marriage, and they just loved their kids. But then in a split second, she had that different personality, and she'd scream and yell and put me down, and just weird things in life. And one day when I do a segment on bipolar and all of that, I'll talk more about it. But Vicki was she was just a light in my world at that time, and just always believed in me. And not that other people in my life didn't, it just was a different, special kind of bond. And now I can call her my soul sister. Yeah, we just have a special, different kind of bond. And it wasn't a motherly figure. It wasn't a grandma figure. It was just something deep within the soul that she helped me with my healing. And I'd share my stories, and she shared things, and she shared Bible verses. And I'd never had a Bible. I never read a Bible. I didn't go to church growing up. I grew up with my mom cursing the Lord, who absolutely just was angry with him, and talked about how he took her husband from her, and F him and F this and F that. And he, didn't care about this. And who was he if all this destruction happens and all this kind of stuff. And yet I was baptized Catholic. My mom worked at a Catholic school. Growing up, even when my parents were together, she'd make fun of him. But yet my parents did marriage encounters, and they loved each other, and they wrote amazing letters to each other. So there was that side of her. So I was so confused. I'd try and ask my grandma, who was a Catholic, about God, and or who is a Catholic. And I'd ask her, well, who's Jesus? Who's God? Like, where's the Garden of Eden? Is that still around? Mandy, that it's just how it is. That's just, you don't ask questions like that. Jesus is God, God's Jesus, like that's it, Mandy. You don't, that's how it is. And you pray. It's like, but I don't, what does that mean? Every once in a while when I'd go to church, it was a Catholic church, and I didn't like it when my kids were at Presbyterian preschool. I'd try and go to church, and it was for all the wrong reasons. I would go to church high using drugs, and I'd take them to church because I was guilty and felt ashamed of what I was doing. So I would go to church to be like forgiven. I didn't know that that's why I was going at the time, but it was like, okay, if I go to church, everything will be okay. I won't get caught. So here's Vicky, who just had me so curious. She'd talk about God, and we'd have these it was training, but at the same time, it was worshiping. It was like my church that I'd have a couple days a week. And it just was amazing. And so 2012, I became a personal trainer. 2013, next thing you know, my husband and I were getting married, and my mom is in a really good place. Like, her and I were talking. I had apologized about things in my life and my past. I wrote her this letter, and she was planning a huge trip for the whole family to go to Disneyland one last time, she kept saying, because my grandma was getting older, and my oldest brother had gotten married, and my oldest brother had gotten married. He met his wife later in life, and as he was in his 40s, and so he had gotten married earlier that year, 2013. I was doing really well with doing hair and being at different gyms, teaching classes, and I think at that point I was doing 8 classes a week. I got to 10 classes a week later on, but at that point I was doing 8 classes a week. I was doing hair. My mom seemed to be in a little bit a better place, like happier, just more at peace with things. Like, her and I wouldn't argue, or like I'd cut her hair and she'd be like, oh, that's not even worth it. Like, things just don't sweat the small stuff. Blah, 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 that kind of stuff. She still had her little digs because she was a mom. She's my mom. She still have her little digs here and there, like, especially more so on me with my son and things like that. And I think I was in a different place to just kind of let things go. But anyway, here we are, 2013. My brother's getting married. Oh, and then they announced that they were going to be expecting a baby. So this is going to be my brother's first child, my oldest brother's first child. My other brother already has kids at this point. Just things in her life were just really good. And so she wanted to plan this Disneyland trip. Again, my husband and I, we got married that year, even though there was still all this turmoil going on, and I was just kind of going with the flow. Even that with my marriage was getting married. It wasn't like, we're so in love and let's get married and blah, blah, blah. Oh no, it was like, you've been really, really sick for a long time. You need my insurance. We plan on getting married someday. So why don't we just get married? I was like, okay, sounds good. Like, I love you and I don't see myself with anybody else but you. And we fight all the time and blah, blah, blah. But okay, let's get married. Oh dear God, just keep leading me because I don't know what's going on. So it was things like that. And then 2013, we later on in November, which my mom had announced in April of 2013 that she was going to plan this trip for all of us to go to Disneyland, the whole family, her grandkids, everything, grandma's last big trip, and it was going to be in November. And November would be, that year, 2013, would be 20 years that my dad had passed away. And she was planning it right around Veterans Day. Just the significance of that was just very emotional. Again, 20 years going by and still not completely healing, still grieving, all of that. And knowing he passed from Agent Orange, and he's, he was a Marine and former military, just all of that, like all of it combined, and veteran himself, and just all these different things. And so, again, just so much stress going on. I was even thinking, I may not even go on this trip. My husband and I were finally moving out of our apartment and into a house that we found to rent. And it was going to be like the weekend after us moving, and then all this stuff. And in October, my mom's finding out that she's sick. She has some things going on with her lungs. She had actually been sick probably about a year prior, just like with respiratory things, really bad sinus infections and colds and things like that. I'm going to adjust my camera here. She was having all these tests done, scoping things done with her lungs. She found out she had emphysema. She'd never smoked in her life. Just all these like things were just happening. And then we're moving into this new home. Next thing I know, I'm taking my mom to a doctor's appointment because she needs to be put on oxygen, and her oxygen levels are really low. And my husband is not wanting to go on this trip. There's no way he's going to risk, taking any days off to go on this trip to Disneyland, and knowing that he'd have to be around my son, and my son having to be around him. And we're just starting to kind of talk a little bit more, like all of this stuff. I know it sounds like a lot. That's because it was. I'm not even giving all the full details. And I saw my mom. She came and she saw our house that we had moved into, and she's like, "Oh, wow, this is nice." And she sent me this really, really meaningful, nice text message about how nice our house was and this and that. And she was really happy for us, and she was actually really proud of me, and just these words she hadn't really expressed before. And then again, it was like, am I even going to go to Disneyland? I guess I will. I'll leave on a Friday. Everyone else is leaving on a Saturday. November 9th, everyone was going to be leaving to go there. And I was like, well, I'll leave on the 8th. And my daughter and I will go, and this and that, because my husband wasn't going to go, even though my mom was paying for him, like all this stuff. And my mom was going to be picking up my son, and he lived in Salinas with his dad, and was going to be picking him up that Friday before to bring him to the salon so I could cut his hair. And I said, okay, he needs to be here by this time because I want to leave, town by this time with Miranda so we can get down south earlier and enjoy an extra day down there at Disneyland and stuff. And so I was actually doing Vicky's hair that day. And I was trying to call my mom, and like she was supposed to already be here. I was like anxious and frustrated. I'm like, hello, she's not even here. I was supposed to cut her hair while you were processing your color. And Vicky's like, I wonder, I can't believe this, just kind of listening to me. And I'm calling my grandma, and my grandma's saying, no, she's asleep. She's not. I'm like, well, she was supposed to be here. What the heck's going on? And I'm getting done with doing Vicky's hair, and she's like, well, I hope it all works out, and this and that, and she's trying to tell me, don't stress too much about it, Amanda, just have a fun time, enjoy this, remember your mom planned. And she's trying to God always has a reason for everything. And I'm like, I know, but I'm so mad and frustrated. Like, she was supposed to be here. My grandma, the last phone call I made with my grandma, she's saying, your mom's out cold, I don't know, what's going on. And I didn't want to listen to it. So I left the salon. I didn't wait around. My son was saying, I keep trying to call her, but because I had called my son, like, where are you? He's like, I don't know. I keep trying to call grandma, but she's not answering. And I get out of my car and I'm at the ATM machine, and November 8th, 2013, my brother's birthday. So my brother that had gotten married, they had their daughter that year, my older brother, and I'm at the ATM machine getting out some money for our trip, and I answered the phone, and he said, Mandy, and I said, yeah. And he said, Mom's dead. Mom died. I was like, what? Oh my gosh, where are you? He's like, I'm at the house. I'm at the house. Brandy came over, and he's trying to tell me the story. Brandy's my sister-in-law. She came over because they lived a couple houses down. I said, okay, I'll be right there. I was like, oh God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for being so frustrated. I'm being so mad and angry at my mom and this and that. And oh my gosh. So I called my husband. He was at work, and I said, oh, babe, my mom died. I don't know what's going on, but she died. My brother called me. And again, this is my brother's birthday. He said, okay, I'm going to leave work. I'll be there soon. I didn't know how to call my son. My son and my mom are very close. And I got to the house, and I can't even remember, and so I'm pausing right now, but I think I called my son at that time, and my son didn't have a car, so he had no way to get there at that moment. So I called him, I told him what was going on, and I said I'd give him a call back. And I was outside of the house. And I went in the house. Grandma was there. Sister-in-laws were there. Next door neighbor was there. And I walked into my mom's room. And it was the first time in my life I had ever known the true meaning of peace. Peace, right? Peace be with you. She was in a good place. She was in a really good, happy place. She was exactly where she wanted to be. Where she wanted to be from the exact moment that my dad had passed away. But the only thing that kept her here were her kids and grandkids. So when I say everything happens for a reason, everything happens for a reason. And that was the end of our 2013 year. So what did we all do? We went to Disneyland. My husband came. My husband, my son, my daughter, and I, we all left on a Friday. I got there super early, first thing Saturday morning, and tried to enjoy the park as much as we could. My son continued to stay with my brothers and stuff. I think it was a 4-day or 5-day trip for them. It wasn't for me because I couldn't miss that much work. My husband couldn't. I couldn't have my daughter miss that much school. So anyway, yeah. And 2014 comes, and I pursued another certification. I became a Jillian Michaels body shred instructor. So I had my training going on. At this point, I had a lot of classes going on. I was doing hair. I actually had a really good clientele going on. I was doing a lot of group training, and all women. I only wanted to keep it all women. I knew from the get-go it was going to be women. And Uh, Things were just still chaotic with my kids and my husband and stuff, but I just kept pushing through. I knew I was just following what I was supposed to be doing. And in 2014, I get this certification, and then I applied for a job at a gym in called Chamisol in Carmel Valley, and Chamisol Tennis and Fitness Center there. And I work there 2 days a week. So now I'm doing 10 classes a week on top of my own workouts, on top of doing hair, on top of training, on top of trying to be a mom, a wife, just losing my mom, just life. I know you know what I'm talking about. I know you can relate. That's what we do. It's life. God never said we won't have struggles and trials and tribulations. It's all about how we handle it. And that's life. That's this world. And so I was just trying to do my best that I could do. And I just wanted to be able to provide financially. And I was getting busier with training. And so I had inquired about trying to rent a place, and that didn't work out. There was a lot of riffraff, which I didn't get into in this video, of a lot of stuff between other instructors and myself, and the gym owners and myself, and a lot of backstabbing and really bad negative talking. It wasn't like instructors coming together in gym trying to help everyone. It was like, so-and-so has her classes and so-and-so has their classes, and how many people did you have in your class, and how many people, and oh, I heard this, oh, she's leaving for, and like talking about me, she's taking time off for another surgery, oh, what is she having now, her breast done again, oh, just all this like gossipy, childish, negative strife, like just yuckiness. And I already had that going on in my life. And I'm just like, dear God, why am I doing this? Why are you having me do like fitness of me, of all people? Like, where is this coming from? But it just was coming. This was not a dream, a goal, a vision I ever saw myself doing, ever. It was all the Lord. This is what He called me to do. I was learning so much on nutrition and and certifications, and I was setting goals for different certifications. And so then I was being turned down on training and trying to rent a spot and stuff. And then the home that we're renting, we're being asked if we want to purchase this home because they want to sell the home. And we're like, we can't buy a home. We don't have money to buy a home. Well, my husband, who is a former Marine, he is a veteran, and he has his VA loans. And so one of my clients is a realtor, and she said, what about his VA loan? And I said, I don't know. I don't even know what that is. And I said, well, let me ask him about it. And through all of that and connecting us with other people and figuring out that we could actually purchase a home, we had purchased our home within 30 days. And by that time it was like, well, I'm going to start training people here. I can't find a spot. So I got my business license, my home occupation license, all that kind of stuff. And at the time I was training, and at this time I actually stopped doing the classes in Carmel Valley. It was to travel over there was too much. And so I guess my point for being there was to bring Jillian Michaels Body Shred classes over there, because one of the other instructors, who was amazing, got certified and started teaching the classes there. And so it was awesome. And then I was like, why can't we have that? Why can't I have more of that togetherness and building people up instead of trying to tear each other down? And so I ended up leaving there. And one day as I was driving home, I had a name for my business in my head called ItransformU. And I had the spelling of it, capital I, transform with a capital U. And at the time I was training an attorney who's an attorney in town. And I asked her about trademarking my name, because if you remember, I said my husband came up with the name Body Shred Boot Camp. Well, I never trademarked that name or anything. I didn't even know about that. And then one day, before getting certified as a body shred, Jillian Michaels body shred instructor, I get the magazine in the mail. This magazine that I had been a member of through my certifications, and I see Jillian Michaels on the front. I'm like, oh, Jillian Michaels! Oh my gosh! Like, she's been an inspiration to me. And it said body shred. I'm like, body shred? What is that? And then that's when I learned about body shred, Jillian Michaels body shred. I'm like, oh, how interesting. Okay, well, it's a trademarked name. Like, this is her name and this is her class. And that's why I wanted to become certified in it. And it was 30-minute class, which was what the style of training I was already doing. That my training was always 30 minutes. My classes, the meat and potatoes of my classes were 30 minutes, finishing with what I called Pilates or core work, which now is core or Pilates. So my philosophy was always 30 minutes, just based off of my training and my certifications and what I had learned. And so through all this, I came up with this name, and I met with, I would ask the lady I was training, who was an attorney, if I could get this name trademarked, and I did. So I own the rights to ItransformU. And I started an all-women's training business, and it's taken off. So that was in 2014, and I've been training women and having my own business. And at that time, I was so scared, and God was telling me, shut the door, stop doing hair, shut the door. And I was like, okay, I'll do that, but I'll just do hair out of my home. And I've heard Joyce Meyer talk about this, how he told her one time that she needed to quit her job, but yet then she found a part-time job and got fired. And I felt like that was me, because I looking back, I didn't even listen to Joyce Meyer at the time, didn't even know who she was. But looking back, I shut that door to doing hair. I stopped doing that completely, but then I was doing it out of my home for a couple of people, because I was nervous. I was scared about the income, all of that, being able to provide for my family. And so I was being pulled. I knew I had to trust him and shut that door. And my husband was like, babe, we'll make it work. We got love. My husband and I would always say, we got love. We got love. Finances was not something we ever thought about. It was more so kids and parenting, and the middle of that. That was very hard, very, very hard for us. And so he's like, we got love. You got this. Look at how well you've been doing. Like, why are you why are you doubting yourself? Do it. So I did. I shut the door to doing hair completely. 2015 comes around. I'm doing really well. My business, I keep very strict, very structured, 30-minute sessions, nothing more than that. And the end of 2014, I completely shut the door on doing classes. I had been treated so bad, so unfairly, so poorly. I had another instructor come into my class while I was teaching a class, and was mocking me as I was teaching my class. I drew the line right there. I quit. Prior to that, one of the gym owners, when I wanted to bring body shred to the gym, I had a meeting with her, and we kind of were butting heads, because I knew she had been talking about me. I had talked about her because I wasn't happy, things like that. And there was just riffraff going on. And even in that meeting, she pointed a finger in my face, just like I'm pointing right now. And she's like, I can make or break you. And I was like, oh, wow, thank you. It's like, yeah, you're right. You can make or break me. So anyway, enough with that, because it's all negative stuff. But I kind of bring all that up because it drove me. It really, really drove me. When I think of all the negative stuff in my life, the bullying, the put downs, all the mental and emotional abuse I have been through, It just really drove me. And, but anyway, at that point, it's, now towards the end of 2014, I was just like, I'm done with the gyms. I'm done with all of that. As much as I absolutely love instructing classes, I had to let it go. And I just was like, if it's meant for me to do them again one day, I will. And actually, I've tried to force it a bunch of times, and it just hasn't been, it just has not been his plan right now. Will it be one day? I sure hope so, because I really miss doing classes. I really do. And it's just way different than personal training. So come 2015, I set more goals. I probably set maybe one of the biggest goals that I wanted to do on another certification. And I decided to become a certified military fitness specialist. That was being offered at the time through AFA. And so I decided to take the class. I studied for a couple months with that one, and then the whole training weekend certification was at in Fairfield at the Travis Air Force Base. Pretty intense certification. I thought personal training was. This was like, I don't know, 20 times more than what personal training is. Like with the anatomy and all of that kind of stuff, and just everything in general. And it was really cool. Again, only a few people in the class, and like physical therapists. At that time, I think that's when I realized what CrossFit kind of was, because there were CrossFit coaches in there, and that worked on the base, and they were going to be starting a CrossFit gym there at the base. And so it was kind of interesting. I was introduced to this whole new level of training, and it was amazing. So another certification at that point. Still training, doing well. What's happening in life? I'm talking with my son a little more. My daughter at this point had left. She moved in with her dad in 2015. Because she got a boyfriend, and I wasn't okay with that. And just, again, life, kids, being a parent, them trying to grow up, trying to be in the middle of this. I have a husband that they have riffraff with, and he does with them, and just all these different personalities, and trying to just make it all work, and trying to inspire and encourage ladies and help them through all this, and trying to figure out myself, and trying to better myself and get past my insecurities and fears and anxieties and food addictions, and learning more about nutrition, and having all my gut issues. In 2015, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And so then I had to change my whole nutrition completely around, and it made sense when I was finally diagnosed, because I've had issues my entire life with my gut. I'm sure that stems from a lot of emotional trauma in my life. I know it does. I know that's the IBS part of it. But again, I was diagnosed by biopsy of celiac disease. Biopsies they do of your small intestines. And so my nutrition changed again, and just, again, learning all these new things in life, and just kind of being led. And at this point, I had expressed to one of my friends that something was just missing in my life. Like, my daughter had moved out. And when I expressed this to her, I hadn't been diagnosed yet with celiac disease. Was the beginning of the year 2015, and I had expressed to her, like, I'm really, there's something missing in my life, and I need something. I don't know what it is. And a couple days later, she's sending me a podcast. I had never listened to a podcast before. I'd always see it on my phone, but I didn't even know what it was. And she's like, I don't know if you like this lady. I don't know if you're into, like, this deep of, like, Christian stuff. She's a Christian speaker and stuff. And I'm like, what's that? What's a Christian speaker? And of course, I'd always talk to my clients about, like, I was afraid to use the word or say the name God and his name and stuff, but I'd say, I don't know how, or I don't know where it came from, and I'd do things like that. knowing in my heart and in my mind, like, it's been God. I just was afraid to say his name, like fearful, like someone wouldn't talk to me. I just wouldn't want to say his name. And so I'm like, oh, well, give it a try. It said something about transformation, and her and I had just had this conversation about transforming. We'd always talk about bodies. Her and I just connected really well. We had a lot of similar things with our bodies and stuff like that. And so I listened to this podcast by Joyce Meyer. And I could not believe this woman. I was like, this is it. This is what I've been missing. Oh my gosh. She's talking about God and how we transform in our souls. And we need to transform our soul. And our soul is our mind and our spirit and our emotions and our will. And our bodies, like the temple for the Holy Spirit and all these things. And I'm listening to this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Who is this woman? She's amazing. She's answering all my questions in one podcast. Like, what is this 30-minute podcast? I don't even know what this is. I was so curious. So I looked it up and I figured out what podcasts were right away. And I have listened to her at least 5 times a week. Multiple times in a day. So multiple times. Even if it wasn't every single day, it was multiple times in a day. And then I started listening to her while I trained, while I was weightlifting, while I was doing cardio. Like, I wanted to listen. I would drive around and listen to podcasts, listen to her talk about a Bible. And then she'd read from the Bible. I'm like, how is she reading this? As a kid, I'd pick one up if I'd find one in a motel room. Like, I couldn't even pronounce these words. Thee, thy, like, I don't even know these words. I can't pronounce them. I'm like, how's she reading this thing? And then she'd talk about how she offers a Bible, the everyday Bible. And I'm like, whoa, what is that? And so I became curious. And I know this is 2015. And then I got, this military fitness certification. And I'm training and I'm doing all these things. And then come 2016, and I'm still listening to her. I'm developing all these new things. Now I'm going to now my thing was to become a USA Olympic weightlifting coach, level 1, by the way. So I decided to go to that training. Had no idea, had never done CrossFit before. And I know that was huge in CrossFit. Didn't really know what that was. I go to this class in San Francisco with like 100 people, and there's like 10 of us that had never done this before. These moves were foreign to me. I really discovered what my weaknesses were. It was so hard for me. That part of it, the movements were extremely hard. And I think that was the first time I ever experienced like coordination and it being really hard for me. And so, but I got certified, and I took away a lot of things from that certification. And the biggest one was, I need my own trainer to do those movements. I need my own coach. So 2016, we're, still going through all the same stuff. We've been working on our home. We had refinanced our home. We redid the yard a couple times, all this kind of stuff. And trying to connect with my kids and trying to just do life again. And the end of 2016, I decided to get myself a Christmas present, and that was to get myself my first Bible, the Everyday Bible. I should go grab that right now, so I can talk about it. I'm going to grab it. Hang on. If you're still with me, everyone, thank you so much if you're with me. But so here it is, the Everyday Life Bible by Joyce Meyer. So I ordered this for myself in 2016, and I just kind of left it out. I put it in our office and stuff. Maybe I kind of went like that. I don't know. I didn't read it. I didn't do anything with it. And then Come 2017, uh, another topic, another thing segment I'll bring up is on losses, losing close people in our lives, just losses. And 2017 came, and I had just seen my brother, and again, I'm going through life, still dealing with a lot of different things, still stuff between my husband and I, trying to do my business, all this kind of stuff, um, and I had just been with my brother. Like a few weeks had passed before I had seen him, and then towards the end of January, I'm getting a text message from my sister-in-law that my brother was admitted. This is my oldest brother, who remembered married later in life, had a child later in life, and all that. And that was his biggest dream. That's all he ever wanted. And I'm getting a text message from her that she had forwarded to my uncle, and my uncle's my mom's brother, and my other brother and sister-in-law and stuff. And she said, oh, they admitted your brother into the hospital. He has pneumonia. I'll keep you updated. It was just real short. And I was like, that's really strange. Like, something just tugged at me in my gut, because that's where I carry everything. And I was like, that's really strange. And I went to the hospital, and I saw my brother, and I was just in shock. He was so pale. He looked like he had lost 50 pounds within the 3 weeks that I had seen him. And my sister-in-law was like, oh, they're running tests, they're doing things. They had just removed 2.5 liters of fluid from his lungs. And I was like, that's not normal. And I was just kind of trying to take everything in. He said something about there being something on his groin, and they were going to run a test on that. Like, they were being very vague, I felt like, because I think they didn't know what was going on as well. So when I say vague, I don't mean that in a bad way. It just was weird. Again, just feelings that I had, epiphany moment. And I sat on the couch that night. My husband doesn't remember a lot of this stuff. He'll tell you, oh, I don't remember. He was sitting in his area where he always sat on his couch or chair. I think he had his chair at that point. He did. And I sat on the couch, and I looked at him, and I said, my brother's going to die. I know it. And my brother and I had a lot of riffraff between he and I also, with everything with my mom evicting me and the kids, and just a lot of stuff, whole different story. And I was just like, oh dear God, what's going to happen? What next? And I know so many of you can relate, because it's like one thing after another, after another, after another, right? It's like you're living in the wilderness. And it's like you can see the promised land, but you're questioning, and you're doubting, and you're moaning, and you're groaning, and you're going through all this. And at this point, I know Joyce had talked about surrendering and this and that. And I was like, oh dear God, I don't know what else I can take. I surrender this all to you. I give this all to you, because I don't know how to deal with all this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how much more I can handle. My daughter wasn't as close with my brother at this time, but my kids were very close with my brother for years. He was a very big part of their life for years. And my son still at this point was a huge part of his life. And so all these thoughts going through my head. And sure enough, a few weeks later, we're getting the news. And I was actually there with my brother and sister-in-law at their doctor's appointment, that he had a stage 4 cancer. And they didn't know what type at that point, but that it was very aggressive. And we didn't even leave the doctor's appointment that day. They sent him over to the hospital and admitted him. And I just knew. I knew. I knew it wasn't good. I questioned so many things, and it was so hard, and I didn't want to question. I just wanted to lean on God and just trust in Him. And then I just didn't know what to do. So what did I do? Thank you so much, Joyce Meyer, because I could read this. I just started flipping through the pages, and wherever I landed, like, that's where I'd start reading. And I started faithfully, because I had actually started out in 2016. Every morning I would start my morning with reading her devotional. Actually, it started in probably 15 because I was listening to podcasts, and then I'd read her devotionals, and then it became reading scriptures in the Bible, and just kind of going with the back of the Bible and finding what areas I needed like extra help on or studying on and stuff. And I would start reading. I didn't understand what I was reading, but I, in the back of my Bible, I'd start making notes, and I started writing, and then I was like, am I even supposed to write in a Bible? Is that okay to do that? And I was like, I'm just, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to let myself feel guilt anymore. Like, I've dealt with that for years. And so, 7 weeks later, my brother did pass away, and it was a hard 7 weeks, I will tell you that. So I just remember watching my sister-in-law and my family, and my brother did what was called actively dying. If any of you know what that is, oh gosh, I feel for you. To have to watch someone actively die. And he did for 5 days. It went on for 5 days. We were told he had a day or two left to live, and he just kept going on for 5. And I won't go into details on that, but it just was hard. And if someone doesn't have faith or have God in their life and stuff, I don't know how much harder that would be. I'm so grateful that I was where I was at in my faith at the time. And so he ended up passing. He had only been married for a few years, 3 years, and had his little girl, my niece, who was almost not quite 4 yet at the time. So that's a lot going on. And then during that time, this is 2017, everyone, we're getting close. During that time, my son had informed us that his girlfriend was pregnant. They had just finally moved into their own little studio apartment they had gotten. He has his own testimony, what that boy has been through and what my daughter has been through with their significant others. My goodness gracious. Please pray for their souls to soften, because I want them to share their testimony one day. They're still going through a lot too. But anyway, my son had informed us while my brother was sick that they were expecting. They informed us that they wanted to get married and that it was going to be in April. And they were planning all this themselves. They found a pastor from a church that they had liked and a pastor they had connected with. And they're planning all this stuff. And we still hadn't been given the news that my brother was passing. He was sick at this time and going through chemo, and this cancer ended up, they didn't know what it was for the longest time. They had to contact the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, I believe, and send his blood there or whatever, and come to find out it was a soft tissue sarcoma cancer, and it was extremely aggressive, spreading through his body, his brain. I mean, every single part of his body, it literally spread through his body. And so then my son's hitting me with this, and at this time I was trying to train for a half marathon at Camp Pendleton. It was my second year doing this. It's through the foothills of the Marine Corps base at Camp Pendleton, and it's super intense, hard, and so I just kept training as I'd go visit my brother and be at these appointments, and I kept training my clients, and my son was going through this, and I was trying to still build this relationship with him, and my husband and him kind of started talking a little bit because they would meet up at the hospital, like just all these things. And my daughter still with her boyfriend, not being at home. And then we're given the news that my brother died. My brother did die. We saw it and not given the news. And then a couple weeks later, I had my father-in-law coming to visit from Michigan. He was staying with us for 2 weeks. It had already been planned. He was going to go to down south with us so he could watch me and be there with us while I did this run. And my son got married. We found out they're having a boy. They're going to name him after my brother. I ended up extremely, extremely sick and dehydrated from the run that I did. I was super sick and I didn't know I was sick, and I did the run and I pushed myself through the whole thing. I stopped once to try and use the bathroom. I looked like I was 9 months pregnant by the time I was done. I ended up, super, super sick. And like at the hospital sick, I had severe dehydration. My blood pressure had dropped severely low. And I had to recover from that. And then a few weeks later, my husband and I are looking at homes to buy because we had this idea we wanted to move. I knew a year prior to that we were going to move. So that's a whole part I left out also. But I started doing this again, I heard God talk to me and just be like, it's time. It's time. So I started going through cleaning house in preparation for moving. I didn't know where. I didn't know how, when, what, where, why, whatever. I knew we were going to move. I knew we weren't going to stay in that home. So that was a year. That was in 2016. And I was not going to move with the stuff that we had. I wanted to declutter. I wanted to simplify. And again, learning all this through listening to Joyce's teaching, all through Joyce Meyer's teaching, and learning about God and simplifying and loving, and just wanted to build this relationship, and just realizing none of that stuff is important. It really surely isn't. Relationships and love and everything are important. And that's always been important to me. And so my husband and I decided that we were going to move, and we found a home out of town, 30 minutes away from Hollister, in a town, or actually 40 minutes, Los Banos. Bittersweet, but one of my clients, she became our realtor, and we put our home on the market, and 30 days later, we're moving. I did not know anybody. I did not have any clients in this town. I had to leave all of my clients behind. It was hard. And I kept coming up with this verse that in order to progress in life, change needs to be made. And I knew that this is what we were supposed to be doing. And we found what we called our dream home. It literally was. It seriously was meant to happen. The way it all happened and took place, again, a whole different story, but it was meant to happen. And within 30 or 31 days, we were in our new home in Los Banos, where we didn't know anybody. Actually, my husband didn't know a coworker there, but not on that kind of level, not for me to train or anything. And I didn't work for a while, and I just sat here and I prayed every morning, and I'd read through my Bible, and I was like, God, it's in your hands. I trust you. I trust that you're going to lead me in the right way. I really had peace with everything. I went back to doing hair, met a couple people, and I started picking up clients for training. And within a couple months, I stopped doing hair, and I was already back to training and starting my business. And everything I just put in God's hands. Like I really, really learned the true meaning of surrender. I really, truly did. And then I became a grandma. Oh, I became a grandma. It was like the best thing. This beautiful little baby boy. My son and husband started talking. My daughter's talking with us more. Her boyfriend was. I tell you, that little boy, you've seen my posts. Little babies are so innocent. They can bring so much joy. That little boy is a special little boy. Because through all of that, my husband wasn't on board with being a grandpa. He was never one that wanted to get married, have kids, be around kids like that, and this and that. And that little boy he has really taken us by surprise. And that was in October 2017. And then I joined this challenge, a diet bet challenge in November 2017. I had gone on Instagram and Facebook again to this social media thing and a whole different light, in a positive light, to meet people and connect with people and to try and get business maybe. But I just was really into it. And I came across Jamie Eason on Instagram. I was like, oh, I liked her. And I remember seeing things like her. I used to use her recipes years ago and stuff. And so I looked her up on Instagram. And if you know me, I don't follow a lot of people. I try and stick with the ones God tells me to stick with. It really, truly is. I used to try and explain of how I tried to follow people or who it was and why I did. There's no reasoning, but I stick with who God tells me to follow. And so I clicked on her to follow, and then I saw she's having this diet bet challenge in November. I didn't even know what that was, and I won't go into details, but I joined this challenge to try and get me back on track, to try and just get me back into a routine. I just had such an off year with that kind of stuff. And so I connected with her. I was like, oh my gosh, she responded to me. Like, whoa, she responded to me. And this is my first time sharing this, like, about her, like, even saying that, like, oh, she responded to me and stuff. And so I was like, whoa, this lady's really nice. Whoa, she's really into her. Like, she knows God. Oh, she knows exactly who God is. I started reading her posts. I'm like, her family's amazing. She is so faithful, and she knows who he is. And so then I came across another lady she knows, Becca, who won what's called a Lean Body Challenge through Liberata Nutrition, who Jamie Eason was affiliated with or worked for at that time. And I'm not sure how all that works. But then she started posting things, and I looked her up and I was like, oh my gosh, this lady's amazing. Like, she knows who God is. Like, whoa, like I was reading her posts. I'm like, whoa, I was just so inspired by these ladies. And it wasn't so much fitness. It was about God. And then she was posting her transformation pictures of what happened with winning the Lean Body Challenge. And I was just so impressed. And I was finding myself not being jealous at all. I was just like intrigued and being so happy for these ladies. And so come 2018, I decided to join the Lean Body Challenge. And I had it set in my head, like, I could win this. I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it. And my goal is to build a stronger relationship with God through this whole thing. And I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to do it. I'm going to start from page 1, and I'm going to go to the very end. I didn't even know it was called Genesis and Revelations. Like, I didn't know what that was. I set out this goal, and I decided to do that. And it wasn't just reading the Bible. Joyce Meyer talks about studying the Bible. So I went through and I was going to study the Bible. And I did this challenge, this 12-week challenge. And I really, really thought like I was going to place, that I was going to win. And I was going to do this. And I connected with these people and like on such a like really cool level, just sharing stories and feeling the Lord like work through us and feeling the Holy Spirit just like pour through us through messages on Instagram and this and that. And I was like, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win something with this. I know I am. Like it's meant for me to meet Jamie Eason. That's why I want to do this. I didn't even want to go on the cruise because especially with celiac disease, I knew I couldn't. And and I was just like, I'm going to meet her. I'm going to do this. And I didn't win. And I was so let down, but I was trying to just be like, your will be done. Your will be done. I know what that means. I know what it means. And I did. I was disappointed, but I knew that he has a different plan for me. He had a different plan for me. I ended up really sick again. And then, long story short, connected with a new doctor, to Dr. Roxanne out of Texas, and Roxanne Eddington, sorry. And I was diagnosed with leaky gut, which I had assumed I had for years, and doctors just told me I was crazy again. So working with her, I was working more on my gut health and trying to build my relationship with God more and trying to get into my workouts and this and that. And through all this also, now we're in 2018, like I said, I realized I wanted to go to church. Like through all this, like I was like, it's time. I was taking a shower one day and I was praying upon it and I was like, it's time. It's time. I heard him tell me it's time. And then I just started asking him, please lead me to a great church. I want good, loving people in my life. I want people that are going to help me love you more, who are going to bring more love into my life, more understanding, more knowledge. And I was led to Cornerstone Church here in Las Vegas. And now they've hired a new pastor, Pastor Jordan Harris, and his wife Allie, and I've connected with them and a bunch of amazing ladies through the church who have amazing husbands and families, and now we're at the beginning of 2019, and this is where I'm at. I have other certifications. I forgot to mention I became a bar above instructor as well. I did numerous amounts of continuing education over the years on, I have a certification in nutrition for sports and exercise. I did TRX, so I'm TRX qualified. I did indoor cycling, continuing education. I did continuing education and life coaching, in mind, body, fitness. I'm trying to think what else. I've learned a lot on clinical nutrition. There's no certification I have in that. It's just more continuing education. And I don't know. I don't know where my next certifications are going to bring me. I know who God is. I'm not afraid to say his name. I'm not afraid to talk about Jesus. I'm not afraid to talk about the love that he has for each of us. And I hope this story shows that no matter what you go through in life, he loves you. He loves you. He loved me when I was using drugs. He loved me when I was screaming at my kids. He loved me when I was throwing things across the room. He loved me when I was fighting with my mom. He loved me when I hated myself. Don't ever, ever, ever think that you are not loved or that no one loves you. Because he loves you. He sacrificed himself on the cross. He sacrificed. He came here. God sent his only son to come here for us, for our sins, for like the things that I did, for our sins, to shed his blood, his life. Blood is life. To shed that for us, so we could be forgiven. When I set out that goal to read my Bible and study it for the first time, forgiveness is what I learned. And I learned that I have been forgiven. We have been forgiven. You can be forgiven. But you have to forgive yourself. Don't hold a grudge. Bless all of those that have hurt you. Bless their hearts, because hurting people hurt people. And that is something I learned through Joyce Meyer. And I thank you. If Joyce Meyer watches this, if Jamie Eason watches this, if Becca Peterson watches this, Jillian Michaels watches this, I thank you. I thank you, I thank you, I thank you. I am so grateful for my husband, for God leading me to my husband. I may not talk about God as much as I do with other people around him and stuff. Like we're on different levels with that. And that's okay. I love him. And in some ways I try and tell him, like, he's led me. He's been a big part in leading me closer to God. And forgiving ourselves is huge. You have to forgive yourselves. We are not perfect. We aren't perfect. God knows that. He sent his only son to die for us, for our sins, because we're not perfect. But if you can wake up each and every day, and when those feet hit the ground, and you can say, I love you, Jesus. Thank you for today. Because each day is a blessing. Every single day is a blessing, and don't you forget that. We do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. We do not know how much time we have with our loved ones. We came here, and we're going to leave here. And when I leave, I want a great place in heaven. He promises us so many wonderful blessings. And we can be happy here on earth. We really, truly can. We all hurt. We all have suffered. We all have things that we go through. And it hurts. It hurts so bad in here. But you can live a happy, healthy life. God loves you. And all those times when I did what I did, where I flew, he was always with me. He had never, ever, ever, ever left my side. I just didn't want to grab his hand. And I'm so grateful I did when he told me that day, enough is enough. And at that time, I thought it was my dad. And it was my dad. It was my Heavenly Father. And now I share this story. When my dad was dying, we had 2 weeks to say goodbye to my dad. We were told he has about 2 weeks left to live. And of course, he passed away 2 weeks, like to the day. My dad is my hero. He was always my peace, my calm. And I just remember thinking, he's the strongest man ever. He knows he's going to die. He knows he has to leave his children and his wife and his family. And so what did he do? He decided to pull each of us aside and talk to us and tell us what he wanted for us in life. I sat on the edge of his bed and he held my hand. And I told you I was in a bad adult relationship at that time. I was way too young. And so, of course, the first thing he said to me is, I don't want you to marry Matt. Matt was his name. And I just like kind of laughed. And I know that was my dad's way to ease into things. He said, Mandy, all I want for you is to be happy. My happiness is gone as soon as I left that door. As soon as I walked out that door. And I was getting ready to leave that night. And that was my first, I call that my epiphany moment. Because God prepared me right at that moment. And I told my dad, okay, Dad, okay, you know. That's all he said to me. It wasn't like, I want you to finish school. I want you. He was just, Mandy, I want you to be happy. And I said, all right, bye, Dad. I'm going to leave tonight. I love you. He said, Mandy, I love you. And he blew me a kiss. And he said, I love you. I want you to know I feel good. I'm going to get better. I'm going to see you in the morning. I just remember hearing, I'm going to get better. I was like, no, he knows he knows he's not. I said, okay, Dad. I love you too. I'll see you in the morning. And I walked out that door and I absolutely knew that was the last time I was going to see him. I went to my boyfriend's house because he lived in that area where the hospital where my dad was at. And we got to his house and I'm sitting on the couch and I was sitting on the edge of the couch there and I was biting my nails and I was just waiting. I don't remember what I was waiting for. I was waiting. I was on edge. And I remember my boyfriend at the time and his stepdad watching TV and I'm just like waiting and I hear. I jumped off the couch and I ran to the door and it was my mom telling me that my dad had passed away. And to be told that all he wanted for me was for me to be happy. And all these years, it's like, what is happiness? What is it? What is it? What is this word called happiness? It's God. I am so happy in life. I am so happy. You know what? I have struggles every single day. Or, well, maybe not every day. I still have a lot of struggles. We have financial difficulties. We don't always get along. Things happen in life. But I have found true happiness. True happiness. And all that comes from knowing who God is and where my faith is. And the real things that are important in life. And what's important in life are my relationships, love. That is something that we take with us. Our heart, our soul. That's what God looks at. When he judges us, when we stand before him, that's what he's going to look at. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat it. Give it all to God. Cast your cares away on him. There are things that are way beyond our control. There are things that we cannot handle, we cannot take care of, and we try to, and it stresses us out. And it takes away our joy. It takes away our happiness. It's not worth it. For those of you that have watched this, I even have way more to talk about. And this is the longest video I have ever done. This is the Holy Spirit working through me right here today. This is me. This is real. I'm Amanda Moon. And I thank whoever has watched this video for this long, because this is longer than any movie I even sat and watched. This is why I would love to write a book. I don't know how. I don't know where to start. If anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. Please help me. I need extra help. God knows who He'll lead me to. And there's multiple books I would love to write. Who has helped me in my walk with God and understanding the most? Joyce Meyer. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Joyce Meyer Ministries, for all that you do. I just am amazed with Joyce Meyer. And if you have not listened to her testimony or read about her testimony and what she has had to go through in life, I highly recommend that you do. I highly recommend it. And yeah, this is me. Thanks, everyone. Much love to all of you. Bye.